Chapter 144. When Lu Chaoge was busy dealing with the work at hand, Zheng Jing knocked on the door and came in. He looked at Lu Chaoge with a smile and said, "Principal, I'm here to refill your cup of tea." Lu Chaoge glanced at Zheng Jing, and then looked at the documents on the desk again. Zheng Jing took Lu Chaoge's cup to the water dispenser to refill the water, but he stood opposite Lu Chaoge's desk, and did not leave immediately. Lu Chaoge looked up at him and asked, "Is there anything else?" "Principal, is there anything I need to deal with?" Zheng Jing asked with a smile. "Xiaoming is very capable. I will let her deal with anything," Lu Chaoge said. "How can that be?" Zheng Jing waved his hand and said, "Although I am the deputy director of the office, I am actually the principal's secretary. If there is anything, of course, the principal will let me deal with it. The principal can't favor one and discriminate against the other. It is my honor to be able to serve the principal." Lu Chaoge looked up at Zheng Jing for a few seconds. She closed the folder on the desk and said, "Director Zheng, sit down." "Principal, just call me Little Zheng." Zheng Jing rubbed his hands and said, "Director Zheng, you are a smart person. I will not beat around the bush with you." Lu Chaoge said frankly and directly, "I know that it is not easy for you. And you also know that I am not free. So we don't have to torture each other. To be honest, I don't believe you. You can't be 100% loyal to me. Isn't it good for us to keep a certain distance?" "Principal Lu." Zheng Jing's face was red. His throat moved, but he did not know what to say. Of course, Zheng Jing knew the role he played around Lu Chaoge. But he was really at a loss when Lu Chaoge exposed him so blatantly. Don't hit people in the face. Being told by the boss that it was impossible to be 100% loyal to her. Any subordinate would feel a sense of fear. Lu Chaoge tapped the document in front of her with her finger and said, "Director Zheng, I still have something to do." Zheng Jing hurriedly got up as if his buttocks were on fire. "Principal, you're busy, you're busy." Zheng Jingluo ran away in a panic. Lu Chaoge sat for a while with a gloomy face. She got up and walked to the door of the office. She told the secretary Xiaoming, "Ask Teacher Fang Yin to come here. I have something to talk to him about." "Yes," Xiaoming replied. No one would have thought that Fang Yin was sitting opposite Zheng Tiancheng at this time. One was an ordinary teacher, and the other was a board member of Rosefinch Secondary School. And Rosefinch Secondary was just a very inconspicuous business under Zheng Tiancheng Group. The difference in status between Fang Yin and Zheng Tiancheng was more than 108,000 miles. However, Fang Yin just had to sit in Zheng Tiancheng's office and become a VIP that he had to see. After the beautiful female secretary turned around and left, Fang Yin picked up the teacup and took a sip. He said with a smile, "Director Zheng really knows how to enjoy himself. This top-notch Longjing tea can't be drunk anywhere. But the quality of the tea in Principal Lu Chaoge's office is still a bit worse. Could it be that Principal Lu is more extravagant than Director Zheng?" Zheng Tiancheng's face was gloomy as he said, "Principal Lu has an extraordinary background. It's not strange for her to have a few boxes of good tea." "No, it's Principal Lu who treats people sincerely," Fang Yin said. "Whether it's the school's senior leaders or a powerless teacher like me, she will take out her best tea to entertain the guests. I think Director Zheng definitely won't drink this kind of tea, right?" Zheng Tiancheng's dark face became even darker. Everyone knew that the boss's office was usually equipped with a variety of tea. If the boss wanted to drink tea, the secretary would naturally choose the most favorite tea according to the boss's taste. If it was an important guest, the secretary would choose the top tea according to the guest's taste. There was also a kind of tea called popular tea. It was for guests like Fang Yin who had no identity or status, but the boss had to see, so he would use the same popular tea to entertain them. Since it was popular tea, the quality naturally wouldn't be good. "What are you trying to say?" Zheng Tiancheng said while suppressing the anger in his heart. If possible, he really wanted to ask the bodyguards to throw the guy in front of him out. Of course, he really didn't want to meet such a small character before. However, the information he sent in made him pay more attention to this guy. A small teacher actually had the guts to interfere with the school board's affairs? "I'm saying that I hope Director Zheng can be honest with me," Fang Yin said with a smile. Don't be like the tea leaves that are used to make tea, throwing out some random things to be perfunctory. If that's the case, it will hurt my sincere feelings from afar. Can we start now? Zheng Tianqing said impatiently. He raised his wrist to look at his watch and said, You only have 5 minutes. Then let's start, Fang Yin said. Do you know Zhu Jian Director Zheng? I don't know him. Zheng Qingtian directly rejected the information of this person's existence in his mind. Of course, Director Zheng may not be familiar with the name if I say it directly. After all, Director Zheng usually comes into contact with some big shots. Zhu Jian used to be a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, and also Zheng Guodong's language teacher. He was chased out of school because he had an ambiguous relationship with a female student and happened to be photographed by Zheng Guodong. Does Director Zheng have any impression of him? A little, Zheng Tianqing said. Such a person doesn't deserve to be a teacher. The punishment he received is what he deserved. I used to wonder if we were being too lenient toward this kind of social trash. What if Zhu Jian was wronged? Fang Yin asked with a smile. Then you go find the person who wronged him and send him to the police station. A smile appeared on Zheng Tianqing's face, but his eyes were cold when he looked at Fang Yin. Bad people should be punished. Isn't society moving forward smoothly and healthily by such moral principles and legal provisions? I think so too. Fang Yin nodded. Director Zheng and I have the same idea. Fang Yin put down the teacup in his hand and said with a smile, Director Zheng, then I won't bother you anymore. Since you have made up your mind, you have to actively implement it. After Fang Yin finished speaking, he turned and walked toward the office door. Insignificant skill. Zheng Tianqing sneered. He knew that Fang Yin would not leave. If Fang Yin really wanted to leave, he would not have gone through so much trouble to see him. If he really wanted to call the police, why did he come to negotiate with him? Since he wanted to negotiate, it proved that he had ulterior motives. As long as there was something he wanted, before he got it, he would definitely come back. Hey, why hasn't he come back yet? Zheng Tianqing heard the sound of Fang Weiyin's footsteps getting farther and farther away. He heard Fang Yin open the office door, heard the office door close, and even heard Fang Yin praise his secretary outside. His secretary's eyes were as clear as a lake in spring. Until now, Fang Yin had not returned. Zheng Tianqing could not sit still. He opened the office door, looked at the secretary and asked, Fang Yin, where is the young man just now? Boss, didn't you guys finish talking? The secretary asked doubtfully. Did he really leave? Yes, he left. Zheng Tianqing's heart suddenly sank. This young man did not play by the rules, making him feel like he was out of control. Did he really find something? Did he really want to send the information to the police station? His reason told him not to act rashly. This was a trap. He could not take the initiative to enter the trap, and he could not be at a disadvantage. However, what if the opponent he encountered was a rash idiot? Zheng Tianqing hesitated for a moment, then said to the secretary, Do you have his registered phone number? Call him, and say he left something behind. Tell him to come back and get it. Yes, boss. The secretary was puzzled, but she still followed the boss's order. 5 minutes later, Fang Yin sat in Zheng Tianqing's office again. This time, the secretary brought a cup of tea. The quality of the tea was obviously improved by several grades. Fang Yin took a sip of the tea and praised, Good tea. I don't have any other hobbies, but I like this good tea. Elegant person. Zheng Tianqing said. Oh, good beauty. The sage said that food and sex are natural. Good US dollars. Zheng Tianqing sorted out his mood and said, I express my sincerity. Now can we talk seriously? Okay. Fang Yin said with a smile. Talk about what? Zheng Tianqing felt a surge of anger in his heart. This person was not serious at all. Didn't Director Zheng ask me to come back and say that I left something behind? I came back to get it. Fang Yin said. A mobile phone. Zheng Tianqing said. It was left by another guest. I mistook it. Then there's nothing for me to do. Fang Yin said. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Director Zheng, see you at school. Fang Yin. Zheng Tianqing shouted angrily. Be serious. Fang Yin was stunned, but he was happy in his heart. Very good. Zheng Tianqing was angry, He was angry because he had a guilty conscience. Because he had a guilty conscience, he asked the secretary to call him back. Because he had a guilty conscience, he could tolerate his cynicism. Moreover, he was really worried that he had some important information in his hands. In that case, not only would his son's situation be worrisome, but he himself might not be able to get away with it, right? Zheng Tianqing was angry, and this was the sincerity that Fang Yin wanted to see. Fang Yin sat down and said, I want to reverse the verdict for Zhu Jian and seek justice for him. Why? First, I want to wash away the shame on him and return his innocence. Second, I want Rosefinch to hire him back to teach and continue to be a Chinese teacher. Third, compensate him for his financial and mental losses. Fourth, all bad people should be punished. This is what Director Zheng said just now. Chapter 145. Zheng Tianqing sat there and listened attentively, looking at Fang Yin with gentle and kind eyes. She didn't think that Fang Yan's behavior was impolite, but encouraged him to continue. Director Zheng, we're not ungrateful people. We also know that if people like us accidentally get into a conflict with you, or even if it's just because we feel that we've been treated unfairly and want to seek justice, it'll take a lot of courage. Fang Yan patted his chest and said, We have worked hard for a long time and have done a very meticulous job. So, please don't easily refuse and hurt us, because it will hurt our last bit of self-esteem and make us hysterical. Things might get worse or anything might happen. Zheng Tianqing looked at Fang Yan and asked, Do you have anything else to say? No, Fang Yan said. You have mentioned the conditions and threats. Zheng Tianqing nodded and said, You've already done very well. To be honest, you're not the best negotiator I've ever seen, but you're the most talented negotiator novice. In the past, I didn't realize that in Rosefinch Secondary, in my territory, there was actually such a talent hidden. This is really my mistake and loss. Zheng Tianqing looked at Fang Yan with a face full of sincerity and said in an equal and friendly tone, Fang Yan, how about being my assistant? You will come to a big platform that you have never imagined before. You will receive the respect of countless people and opportunities for development that no one can estimate. Rosefinch's platform is too small. It is not suitable for you. Just an invitation? Fang Yan asked. No threat. No threat, Zheng Tianqing said without hesitation. I'm not a threat here. I'm going to tell you what you're getting. First, you'll get what looks like a handsome annual salary. If your performance amazes me, I don't mind giving you some dividends. You know, this is a benefit that only the senior executives and those who have followed me for many years can enjoy. Of course, if you become my assistant, you will also be considered as half a member of the company's senior management. Second, you will own a 300 square meter house and a car worth more than 300,000 yuan. This way, isn't it a little stronger than living in the Vermilion Bird Middle School's teacher's dormitory? Do you have a room at Rosefinch Secondary? Not at the moment, Fang Yan said. He lived in the house that Lu Chaoga had lent him. Lu Chaoga could lend the house to him, and she had the right to take it back at any time. Because a certain director in the logistics department was prejudiced against him, he didn't even have a separate room. What a pity. Talented young people deserve more opportunities to live a better life. Zheng Tianqing said, I just overheard you complimenting my front desk lady's clear eyes, just like a lake in spring. This description is too appropriate. Chen Ting was really beautiful, wasn't she? A sexy girl and a handsome guy. This was really a romantic beginning. If you can become my assistant, what can't happen between you two? It had to be said that Zheng Tianqing was a very smart negotiator. He didn't respond to Fang Yan's words. He even downplayed the matter that Fang Yan mentioned and the conditions that he proposed. He didn't fight on a battlefield that was unfavorable to him. He opened up another battlefield that could better display his advantages and strengths. Of course, this battlefield was definitely the favorite of his negotiators. High-paying position, good salary, and immeasurable development opportunities. Big house, good car, and of course, there would be no lack of beautiful women. What you want, he will give. What you lack, he will provide. He satisfied all the fantasies of a loser. He could let you cut off your past life and reach the sky in one step. Yes, he could do it. You will have so much. And you will have so much that you can't even imagine before. In this case, how many people could persist in standing on the opposite side of Zheng Tiancheng, for a person who was not related to them, and a matter that had nothing to do with them? Who would be the enemy of a luxurious house, a beautiful car, and a tempting high-paying position? If Fang Yin was really a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, if Fang Yin was just a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, if he was like other teachers, they were comfortable and poor. They didn't have to worry about food and clothing, but they couldn't live extravagantly. Their work was easy and stressful. More importantly, they felt that their life was extremely mediocre and boring. If Fang Yin was such a person, could he refuse the conditions that Zheng Tiancheng proposed? The answer was no. He wouldn't refuse. However, Fang Yin was Fang Yin. He was not only a language teacher. The reason he could refuse and say no to Zheng Tiancheng was not because he rejected these things, but because he had these things to begin with. He was not more noble than anyone else. He just had a stronger backing and richer capital than others. This was really a sad story. To be honest, I'm very tempted, Fang Yin said. I mean, if it was anyone else who came to negotiate with you, they might be bribed by you and let you have your way. Even if the victim, teacher Zhu Jian, came himself, I'm afraid he would also hesitate. Of course, this is the result after I put myself in the shoes of the victim. I don't think I'm more moral than teacher Zhu Jian. What I did was within the scope of my ability, and what he did was within the scope of his morality. So, if both of us were to run for the honor of Rosefinch Secondary's moral model, I would not hesitate to cast my vote into the ballot box in front of him. Zheng Tiancheng frowned slightly. Things had become a bit tricky. He had made such a promise. If Fang Yin agreed to accept it, as a smart person, he wouldn't mention the so-called victim or the harsh words like Zhu Jian anymore. Let bygones be bygones. Everyone could start working together to a better future. Wouldn't that be great? He believed in Fang Yan's IQ, and believed that he could make such a choice. But Fang Yan didn't. He was still mentioning the victim, still mentioning Zhu Jian. So, was he going to refuse? Why would he refuse? How could he refuse? But I can only refuse, Fang Yin said. Some people serve for power, some become a lackey for money, some just do it for a high-income job, to let their family live a better life. It's not easy for anyone to live. Why do you work? For fairness, Fang Yin said. For morality. For my conscience, which is decent most of the time. Zheng Tiancheng stared at Fang Yin with burning eyes for a while, and then laughed out loud. He laughed until he was gasping for breath. His fat cheeks were full of meat. He pointed at Fang Yin with his thick finger and said, Fang Yin, do you know? Every day, there are countless people who want to visit my office. I receive at least 5,000 guests every year. The number of people sitting in your current position is countless. But do you know that they only come to see me for one purpose? Cooperation to make money. Or cooperation to make money. No one has ever talked to me about conscience. And no one has ever talked to me about morality. Because not everyone can be so thick-skinned as to say such things in a dignified manner. Ha ha ha, Fang Yin, you're really fresh. Fang Yin didn't laugh. Zheng Tiancheng was telling the truth. In the era of profit, who would talk about conscience? Who had the nerve to talk about morality? They don't say it because they are too embarrassed to say it. Fang Yin said with a serious face. I say it because they don't say it. These words, these things, someone has to stand up and say it. Someone has to be brave to do it. Whether it's conscience or morality, it's a compliment. It's not shameful to say it and do it. Zheng Tiancheng looked at Fang Yin with a dignified face and said, So your conscience and morality make you refuse my good intentions. But our negotiation must continue, Fang Yin said. Let's have a good talk about conscience and morality. Then, you have to strictly abide by the negotiation process. Zheng Tiancheng said. In a business transaction, the buyer inspects the goods first, then the seller makes an offer. The buyer bargains, and finally the transaction is concluded. Both sides are satisfied. How can the seller make an offer at the beginning? Fang Yin, if you want to get a good price, I'm afraid it's not enough to just have a good eloquence and a kind heart. I'm afraid you have to come up with something more convincing. Director Zheng, You already have a guilty conscience, don't you? If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you ask your secretary to call me to come back? If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you be willing to give such a tempting offer to a little teacher like me? If you don't have a guilty conscience, don't be afraid of ghosts knocking on the door. Bah, I'm not a ghost. You know what I said is the truth, but you still don't want to admit it. You think you've done a good job and cleaned up the mess. You believe in money, wisdom, capable people and extensive connections, but you don't believe in God. I've seen too many people like you. Fang Yin looked at Zheng Tiancheng, his cheeks blushing. He looked very embarrassed and said, I like to slap this kind of people in the face. Fang Yin took out a hard drive from his pocket and said, If you have a computer, you might as well open it. Your son won't let you down. Zheng Tiancheng didn't hesitate. He took the hard drive and walked quickly to his desk computer. He plugged the hard drive into the computer and quickly operated it with his right hand. Soon, his face was ashen, and his body slumped into the leather swivel chair. Chapter 146. Where did this come from? Zheng Tiancheng asked in a hoarse voice, as if someone was choking his neck when he spoke. What's the point of asking this? Fang Yin asked with a smile. He picked up the tea in front of him and sipped it leisurely. The outcome had been determined, and he didn't want to waste this delicious tea. Drinking tea after a victory had a different taste. Zheng Tiancheng was irritated, but he was more shocked. He pushed the chair away and stood up. His face became firm and hateful as he said, There were only 5 of them there at the time. The girl can be ruled out, but Zhu Jian is the victim. If he had this video in his hands, I'm afraid he would have taken it out to save himself. Zheng Tiancheng's voice became murderous as he said, So is it Li Mingqiang's son or Chen Tao's son? The answer to this question is really obvious. Why must it be them? Li Yang and Chen Tao are Zheng Guodong's followers. How could they betray him? Why can't it be the 6th person? Fang Yin asked with a smile. Someone happened to pass by the woods and happened to see the shameful scene. He didn't have the courage to stop it, but he filmed this video that caught you off guard. This is also very possible. Zheng Tiancheng sneered and said, You worked so hard to speak for those 2 children. Haven't you already proved a lot of things? Why? Are you afraid that I will retaliate against them? Of course, Director Zheng is not that kind of person, Fang Yin said with a smile. Besides, compared to retaliating against them, you have more important things to deal with, right? Name your price, Zheng Tiancheng said. Your price and Zhu Jian's price. What Zhu Jian needs, he will talk to you. But I don't want money, not a penny, Fang Yin said in a very serious tone. I want the bad guys to be punished. This is my only request. I can't agree to this, Zheng Tiancheng said. Then, I will submit this video to the school and the police station, Fang Yin said. Of course, for safety reasons, I will also post it on the internet. Aren't you afraid of my retaliation? Yes, Fang Yin said. But aren't you afraid of my revenge? Do as I said just now. First, I wanted to wash away the shame on Zhu Jian. He was a good person, and he shouldn't have to carry such a heavy burden all his life. Secondly, I want Rosefinch to hire him back as a teacher. Send him an invitation. Whether he refuses or not is his prerogative. Thirdly, compensate him for his physical and financial losses. You owe him, and Rosefinch owes him. Fourth, the real bad guys should be punished. Otherwise, everything I do will be meaningless. Can we do this? Zheng Tiancheng sat across from Fang Yin and said, I promise you the first 3 conditions. No, I promise you double. I will think of a way to wash away the shame on Zhu Jian and give him a chance to turn over a new leaf. Second, I will hire Zhu Jian to teach at Rosefinch and start from the position of Deputy Director of Teaching. Thirdly, if he gives me a reasonable amount of money, I'll give him double the compensation. But I'll let Zheng Guodong go this time. He's still a child. I can let him leave. Leave Rosefinch, leave Huaxia. Let him go far away. If I promise you, does it count as me colluding with you? Fang Yin asked rhetorically. Fang Yin put down the teacup and said, Director Zheng, you are a man of great wisdom. I believe that you have no choice but to do such a thing. So I'll give you 3 days. I believe that you can make a wise choice. If Zhang Guodong accidentally runs away within these 3 days, then I'll make this video public regardless of the consequences. Director Zhang has a big business, so be careful. Fang Yan took out his mobile phone from his pocket and looked at the time. He said embarrassedly, "Oh, we've been meeting for more than 5 minutes. It's really a sin to delay the school board meeting." Zheng Tianqing felt powerless. This guy really held a grudge. A few major events happened at Rosefinch Secondary these days. The first major event was naturally the eldest of the school's 3 foppish playboys, Zheng Guodong, dropped out of school. He suddenly left the school without informing anyone. Zheng Tianqing's secretary only sent a withdrawal application to the school. Why did Zheng Guodong drop out of school? Where did Zheng Guodong go? This became the topic of many students' discussion. Of course, it was also a mystery that was difficult to pry into the truth. Fang Yin knew where Zheng Guodong went. He entered the juvenile detention center and was about to start a new life that he had never experienced before. Zheng Tianqing finally made a wise choice. He had a big business, so he didn't dare to let this matter affect his own reputation. Nor did he dare to let the company's reputation suffer any damage. Within the scope of Fang Yan's permission, he kept Zheng Guodong's withdrawal and entry into the juvenile detention center within his control. It didn't cause any big waves, not even a small ripple. He had the ability to do it. Of course, the students were happy to see Zheng Guodong drop out of school. Who asked him to be domineering and bully his classmates in school? He wasn't liked at all. The second major event was Zhu Jian's return. The language teacher who was expelled from the school because of a scandal with a student returned. The school obtained new evidence to prove that Zhu Jian and the girl only had a normal teacher-student relationship. In order to make up for Zhu Jian's long period of unfair treatment and grievances, the school not only recruited him back, but also arranged for him to take the important position of Vice Director of Education. Now he was Li Mingqiang's assistant. It could be said that Zhu Jian's return was more sensational than Zheng Guodong's dropping out of school, and it caused more heated discussions among the teachers and students. Some smart people guessed that Zheng Guodong's departure had something to do with Zhu Jian's return, but no one had evidence to prove that there was a definite connection between the two. The third major event was the official establishment of the Rosefinch Secondary Tea Ceremony Society. The first president of the Tea Ceremony Society was the school's legendary figure, Qin Yitian. Qin Yitian originally refused to take on this position. She didn't feel that she had the mood and obligation to spend her precious time and energy to explain and demonstrate the real tea ceremony to her juniors. However, after Fang Yan's repeated requests, and even accepted a condition that only the two of them knew, Qin Yitian finally agreed. Sure enough, the power of an idol was infinite. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, you would never be able to understand how terrifying the girl's influence in the school was. With the support and help of Lu Chaoga, the school specially provided an activity venue for the Tea Ceremony Society and renovated the room into a classical-style tea house. Qin Yitian stood at the entrance of the tea house. When 2 boys hung the plaque inscribed by Lu Chaoga on the wall, countless students who heard the news rushed over to cheer and applaud. Then, there was a long queue in front of the registration desk, and the first batch of 100 registration forms was sold out. Those who couldn't sign up protested loudly, but Qin Yitian turned a deaf ear to them. She directly closed the door of the tea house and pulled the first batch of club members into the tea house for a meeting. The popularity of the Tea Ceremony Society made Fang Yan, the honorary president of the Tea Ceremony Society, very happy. He knew that anything would be successful as long as he had the label of a goddess. Of course, the establishment of the Tea Ceremony Society was to promote the tea ceremony of Huaxia and cultivate the habit of drinking and loving tea in Huaxia. They recruited 100 people in the first batch and selected some students who came for the tea ceremony. Then, they would select the best in batches and turn the Tea Ceremony Society into a real tea ceremony society, not just another fan club of Qin Yitian. Obviously, this process was very difficult. It was said that men who worked hard were the most attractive. In fact, in the eyes of men, women who worked hard were also very sexy. Fang Yan sat opposite Lu Chaoga's desk and watched her quickly read through her opinions on one document after another and sign her name. Her glasses were lowered to the bridge of her nose, and her long hair was loose and touched the paper. Her nose was round and smooth, and there wasn't even a common blackhead. Her eyes were big and bright, and her long eyelashes looked forward like a beautiful little fan. Every time her eyes fluttered, it was like a light touch on a man's heart. After dealing with the last document, Lu Chaoge closed the folder and asked her secretary, Xiaomeng, to come in and distribute the documents to each department. Then she explained to Fang Yan, the school's anniversary is the focus of the school during this time. Every department has to be mobilized to participate. Did you invite Zhu Jian back? The school invited him back, Fang Yan said with a smile. I'm not qualified to give the position of Deputy Director of Education to him. Lu Chaoge took off her glasses, and her beautiful eyes were even sharper and dazzling. You know what I mean, Lu Chaoge said. The leaders of the school, including me, even if they suspected that there would be some disgraceful shadows in Zhu Jian's case, but because of Zheng Tiancheng's intervention, no one really thought about doing anything for him. A lot of things are in the past, and no one will think about uncovering and investigating him again, especially things that have nothing to do with their own interests. Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan and said, You mentioned Zhu Jian in front of me more than once, because there were some misunderstandings between us. I know that if there was no external intervention, Zhu Jian wouldn't have come back, and it would be even more impossible for him to wash away the shame and regain his innocence like this. Fang Yan, you did what I couldn't do. I admire you very much. Fang Yan's mouth was round, and his face was full of disbelief. This strong woman who never compromised with anyone, actually said that she admired him? I'll treat you to dinner tonight, Lu Chaoge said. If there's nothing else, I hope you won't refuse. Oh, Fang Yan was even more shocked. Is this a date? Chapter 147. Who is playing the east wind with the pipa? The years are peeling off the wall, remembering my childhood. Fang Yan was singing. Some people say that if you are successful in love, you will be frustrated on the battlefield. Frustrated on the battlefield, you will be proud in love. Nonsense. Fang Yan was now proving to them that he was not only proud on the battlefield, but also very proud in love. Look at the iceberg goddess of the school, the star idol worshipped by thousands of people, the mature and sexy headmistress, the proud and stubborn strong woman Lu Chaoge, took the initiative to invite him on a date, blowing the horn of attack and shouting the password of conquest. Just thinking about it made people feel sweet in their hearts. Men conquer women by conquering the world. If you fail on the battlefield, how can you conquer the world? If you can't conquer the world, how can you conquer women? So some things are really unreasonable. Mr. Fang, what makes you smile so happily? Like a flower. Lu Chaoge's secretary Xiaomeng stood in front of Fang Yan and looked at his happy face and asked aloud. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I'm a child, I don't understand. Annoying. Xiaomeng said angrily, Who said I'm a child? You're a child. I know even if you don't say it. What do you know? Fang Yan asked. Isn't it just the leader inviting you to dinner? Xiaomeng said proudly. After that, Xiaomeng quickly looked around. She exposed the leader's privacy in public. If the leader heard it, he would be very unhappy. Fang Yan looked at Xiaomeng with wide eyes and said, You already know? You eavesdropped on our conversation? Xiaomeng rolled her eyes and said, Please, I helped you book the restaurant where you ate. I already knew before you came to see the headmistress, okay? Fang Yan felt that Lu Chaoge was too inexperienced. How could this kind of thing be known? Booking a restaurant shouldn't be left to the secretary. Maybe she disdains to hide her feelings. She wants everyone to know who she truly belongs to, Fang Yan thought. Just like Qini Tian. Thinking of this possibility, Fang Yan blushed and felt dizzy. His body felt light, as if he had just drunk a big bowl of wine. Mr. Fang, what's wrong with you? Xiaomeng saw that Fang Yan's expression was not right and asked anxiously. I'm fine. Fang Yan waved his hand. I'm fine. A pot of muddy wine is a happy reunion. How many things have happened in the past and present, all in laughter and conversation. Fang Yen strode away, his voice also becoming passionate and heroic. Xiaoming hummed along and found that the lyrics couldn't keep up with the tune of Breaking East Wind. Sky One. Some people said that this was the most expensive restaurant in Flower City. One of them, Fang Yen, stood in front of the glass door of Sky Number 1 and said embarrassedly, "Isn't this too wasteful? What we eat is secondary. Our main goal is to find a place to talk and chat." Lu Chaoga glanced at Fang Yen and didn't say anything. "How about I pay the bill for this meal?" Fang Yen said. "Usually, this kind of thing is paid by the man." Lu Chaoga glanced at Fang Yen and said, "Okay." Fang Yan's eyes widened. Why did she really agree? With her strong personality, shouldn't she have slapped herself in the face and said, "Stop fighting. I said I'll pay the bill today, so I'll pay today?" For a man, paying the bill is also a kind of honor. Fang Yan's expression was a little awkward, and he was embarrassed to look at Lu Chaoga's eyes. "But you didn't tell me in advance. If I don't have enough money on me, I'll need to borrow some from you." "I have enough money. I'll pay the bill." Lu Xiaoga's lips curled into a smile. "I'm really sorry," Fang Yen said. "I hope you won't laugh at me. My self-esteem is very fragile. There will be opportunities in the future." Lu Chaoga's voice was calm and gentle. She seemed to be hinting at something. Fang Yen thought to himself, what is she hinting at? She wants to tell me not to rush. If we get together in the future, I'll give you opportunities to pay the bill often. Is that so? Then should I reject her tonight? Who would dare to want such an unscrupulous woman? "Sir, how many?" A beautiful attendant in a stewardess uniform walked over quickly and greeted them with a smile. "2, Lu Chaoga said. "My surname is Lu." "Oh, Miss Lu has booked a Magic Cloud private room. Please follow me." The attendant pressed the elevator button behind her, and then the elevator, which could enjoy the surrounding scenery in all directions, took them all the way up to a height of tens of meters. The private room was mainly sky blue, and the magic clouds were everywhere, as if they were really flying in the sky. Seeing the environment in the private room, Fang Yen was very glad. He thought to himself, "Fortunately, I'm not paying the bill." The attendant brought the electronic menu. Each dish had a video specially shot for it. If one was interested in this dish, he could click on the video to learn more about it. Fang Yen felt that it was too high-tech. He said, "Principal Lu, you order." "You can call me Lu Chaoga," Lu Chaoga said without raising her head. "Lu Chaoga." Fang Yen whispered the name and felt his heart beat faster. These women were really enchanting. Their casual words could make people feel numb and have strange associations. Lu Chaoga ordered a few dishes skillfully and said, "Open a bottle of red wine I saved last time." "Okay," the attendant replied. "Miss Lu, please wait a moment." After the attendant left, Lu Chaoga took off her silver coat and hung it on the hanger in the room. She wore a white shirt and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window to look at the night view of Huaqing. The sky was dark, and the clouds were rolling. A heavy rain was coming. Lu Chaoga's eyes were blurry, and her expression was dull. No one knew what she was thinking. Fang Yen stood behind her and didn't know what to say. "Someone told me that you can only enjoy the true night view of Huaqing from here," Lu Chaoga said. "I tried many times, and it's true." "Yes," Fang Yen agreed. Although he didn't know if the neon lights of the skyscrapers outside counted as the true night view of Huaqing, he said, "The view is pretty good." "This is our first time eating together?" Lu Chaoga asked. "Yes. Everyone is usually very busy." "It has nothing to do with being busy," Lu Chaoga interrupted Fang Yen and said. "It's just that it's not convenient. It's not suitable." "Yes, it's not convenient. It's not suitable." If Lu Chaoga, the school's vice principal, always ate with Fang Yen, the new teacher, rumors about them would probably spread throughout the school, right? People would probably scold them for being stupid if they said they weren't a couple. "But do you have to say it so clearly and make people feel like I'm not worthy of you?" "People change, and so does their state of mind," Lu Chaoga said. "I used to think that I was good at reading people, but after knowing you for so long, I've never really seen you clearly. Sometimes I think I've seen you clearly, but you'll soon prove to me that I'm wrong." Fang Yen smiled and said, "Why do you have to see people so clearly?" Because I lack a sense of security, Lu Chaoga said. For people who I can't see clearly, I'll classify them as bad people. I'm worried that he'll tear off his disguise at any time and reveal his smelly fangs. This is very unfair to good people like us. Fang Yin shook his head and smiled bitterly. Yes, you're a good person, Lu Chaoga said. I don't know what you have on Zheng Tiancheng, but I think when you went to negotiate with him, with his businessman nature, he must have offered you very good conditions, right? Very good. I was almost bought over. But you didn't, Lu Chaoga said. Not only were you not bought, but you also sent his only son to the juvenile detention center. Fang Yin looked at Lu Chaoga in surprise and said, You know about this. This was his negotiation with Zheng Tiancheng, and it was also an agreement. He thought that no one would know where Zheng Guodong went. This is the best ending, Lu Chaoga said. It's the same for him, and it's the same for Zhu Jian. It's the best ending for everyone. Zheng Tiancheng definitely won't think so, but you're not afraid at all. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yin with burning eyes and said, Fang Yin, sometimes I really wonder, is there anything you can't do? Don't put me on such a high pedestal. I'm also an ordinary person, Fang Yin said with a smile. Even if it's just a sense of justice, it's already very unusual in this world, Lu Chaoga said. I admire righteous people, so I want to treat you to a meal. Just because of justice? Fang Yin asked. He felt a little disappointed. What about the promised date? What about the candlelight dinner? You don't even chase after me. How can I refuse you? And wisdom, Lu Chaoga said. Splat, bean-sized raindrops slapped on the window, making a sound like beans being fried. Outside, the wind was howling, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. This was a rare rainstorm that Fang Yin had seen since he came to Huaqing. I like rainy days, Lu Chaoga said as she looked at the rain outside. Women all like rainy days, Fang Yin said with a smile. It's easy to make people sentimental. I just think. There was a cruel smile in Lu Chaoga's eyes. This world is too dirty, it needs to be cleaned. Fang Yin was shocked. Lu Chaoga was a little strange today. She was very different from the cold and proud Lu Chaoga that he had met before, who didn't seem to care about anything. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Before Lu Chaoga and Fang Yin could respond, the door was pushed open from the outside. A group of people walked in with glasses of wine. The man in the lead smiled and said, Chaoga, I know you're eating here, so I came to have a drink with you. Chapter 148. Femme Fatale. Fang Yin didn't doubt the truth of this sentence at all. However, what made him feel so wronged and depressed was that Lu Chaoga wasn't his femme fatale at all. She was just his colleague and his boss. They didn't even have the chance to sit at the same table and have a meal together. Why was he always in trouble? Jiang Zhulu, Fang Yan's inexplicable rival in love, Jiang Zhulu, appeared at the door of the private room and walked toward Lu Chaoga with a glass of wine in his hand. With a charming smile on his face, he walked straight to Lu Chaoga and stood in front of her. He raised his glass to Lu Chaoga gracefully and said, Lu Chaoga, I wasn't in a good mood this morning and said some very rude things. I hope you won't take it to heart. Take this cup of wine as a token of my apology. Lu Chaoga stared at Jiang Zhulu with a sharp gaze, and then her eyes gradually softened. In the end, she still picked up the glass in front of her and clinked glasses with Jiang Zhulu before draining the red wine in one gulp. Jiang Zhulu also drained the red wine in his glass and said with a smile, Let bygones be bygones. Living happily is the most important thing. Am I right? I've already forgotten, Lu Chaoga said. Forget the unhappy things and remember the things that are worth remembering, Jiang Zhulu said. You know why I'm anxious, and you also know why I lost control of my anger. After so many years, you understand me far better than I understand you, although I still don't know you well enough, but Jiang Zhulu lightly patted his chest and said, You've always been here, in a very important position. Thank you. Don't say thank you. Who is it that said that? Once a woman is polite, a man won't have a chance. Jiang Zhulu turned around, looked at a tall man and asked, Lu Xiu, did you say that? Haha, you're trying to divert the trouble. What does it have to do with me when you two are flirting? I'm not going to get involved in your family war. the man said jokingly. The man called Lu Shu had a straight back. His facial features were sharp, and his eyes were deep. He was well-dressed and had an extraordinary temperament. He was wearing a light pink collared shirt and a custom-made black suit with a slightly longer tail. He didn't wear any jade or precious wood on his body. There was only an old plum blossom watch that looked out of place on his wrist. It was as if there was a scar on his snow-white arm. This plum flower watch looked very old. It should have been thrown into the trash can or an antique box. However, the man treated it like a treasure and wore it on his wrist. This proved that this watch either had a great background or this person wanted to use it to show off. I always meet such strange people, Fang Yin thought to himself. I don't mind if you say that, but I won't save you if you piss off Chaoga, Jiang Zhulu said with a smile. Lu Shu walked to Lu Chaoga with a glass of wine in his hand and said with a smile, Chaoga, I was just joking with you. You're not mad, are you? No, Lu Chaoga said. I knew it. Since when did my cousin Chaoga become such a narrow-minded woman? Most men wouldn't be able to do what Chaoga did. Chaoga, we haven't had a drink together in a long time, right? Come, let's have a drink. Clang. Their glasses clinked, and they drained the red wine in their glasses at the same time. After that, Lu Shu scratched his shoulder-length hair out of habit and said with a smile, Drinking with a pretty girl is the best. I have a bunch of sweaty and smelly men over there. It's really boring to drink with them. Why don't we share a table? Lu Chaoga turned him down and said, Maybe next time. I have a guest. A guest? Thank God. Lu Shu finally looked at Fang Yan's face. I've never seen him before. I've never seen him before, have I? Fang Yan. He's a teacher at school, said Lu Chaoga. My colleague. Teacher? Colleague? Lu Shu guffawed, as if he had just heard a funny joke. Chaoga, don't tell me you're really going to put down roots in the education industry? You're already bribing your subordinates. What's the point of staying at that crappy school? If you're willing to work for me, I'll make you a vice president. If you want to start your own business, I'll invest 30 million in you up front and 30 million more every 3 months. What do you think? If it weren't for the fact that he had to prove to them that he was also a man who had seen a lot of money, Fang Huohua's face would have turned into an O again. Regardless of the project or the field, an initial investment of 30 million and an additional 30 million every 3 months. That was to say, Lu Chaoga would get 10 million in venture capital every month. Just now, Fang Yan was still feeling proud of himself for resisting Zheng Tianqing's temptation. He felt that he was really a great man who could not be subdued by force, could not be lustful, and regarded money as dirt and beautiful women as old women. Now, compared to the temptation that Lu Chaoga had experienced, he was simply too ashamed to show his face. Thank you. Lu Chaoga refused as expected. I really like my current job. Haha, I knew it. This is the Lu Chaoga I know. Even if I don't like you, I can't not respect you. Lu Shu said with a smile. He glanced at Fang Yan, who was sitting still in the chair, and said, You don't mind if we share a table, do you? I don't mind. Fang Yan said with a smile. As long as Principal Lu agrees. You're all friends anyway. Lu Shu laughed proudly and pointed at Fang Yan. You see, even if a woman wants to find a shield, she should find a man with a bit of backbone. This kind of person with osteochondrosis probably can't take on an important role, right? Willow Tree. Lu Xiaoga scolded. He's my friend. I know. Lu Shu nodded. Of course he's your friend. He's also a very important friend of yours. Otherwise, how could you bring him to Sky One? How could you open the good wine you've stored here for him? Lu Shu thought for a moment and said, As far as I know, you haven't brought another man here before, have you? What's his name again? He's really special. I have to get close to him. This is my private matter. It has nothing to do with you. As a brother, I should care about my sister's living condition. What's wrong with that? Lu Shu asked with a smile. Chaoga, sometimes IQ isn't important but choice is. You're a smart person, and should understand what I mean. Thank you for your kindness. I'm responsible for my own life. But please don't insult my friend. Lu Chaoga said. Lu Shu pointed a finger at Fang Yan and said with a laugh. You think I'm insulting him? You think I'm insulting him? Lu Shu turned to look at his friends behind him and said, Do you think I'm insulting him? Who is he? Does he deserve to be insulted by Mr. Lu? Exactly. What the hell? He's just a school teacher. Isn't he afraid of dirtying Mr. Lu's mouth? Mr. Lu, can't you scold me a little if you have the time? If you scold me, I'll brag to the other brothers that I was scolded by Mr. Lu. Ha! I'll have a lot of face and my status will rise. The Prime Minister's doorstep was a third-rank official. Those who could hang out with Jiang Zhulu and Lu Shu were naturally people with some background. They were either billionaires, or their parents were high-ranking officials. Naturally, they wouldn't care about a little teacher like Fang Yan. Their words were sinister and malicious, mainly to make Lu Shu happy. Lu Chaoga's expression became even colder, and her eyes shone with a sinister light. She wanted to be angry, she wanted to scream, but she couldn't say anything. And she couldn't do anything. She was asking for humiliation. Yes, if she did that, she would only be asking for humiliation. Lu Shu, nicknamed the Willow in the River Pond, was one of the 4 prodigies of Huacheng. His ranking was even higher than Jiang Zhuliu's. To be able to be ranked as one of Huacheng's 4 prodigies, which one of them didn't have a shocking background and strength? If everyone maintained a layer of skin on their faces, then she would still be Lu Chaoga, the love interest of Jiang Zhulu, the adopted daughter of King Longtan, and a member of the Jiang family. They had to at least maintain a respectful appearance towards her. However, if everyone shed all pretense of cordiality, would Jiang Zhulu stand on her side? Would King Longtan speak up for her? That layer of tiger skin on her body would probably be torn apart with a single stab. What could she do to them? Other than being exposed as a worthless mask, she couldn't change anything. I think you said something wrong. Fang Yin wiped his mouth with a napkin and stood up. Are you talking to me? Lu Shu looked at Fang Yin with interest and asked with a smile. He had been hanging around Huacheng for so many years, and no one had ever dared to refute him. It's you. You're called what? Fang Yin wasn't someone who dared to take a loss. Others couldn't remember his name, and he also couldn't remember other people's names. More importantly, no one had ever explained to him where these guys came from. Please, you're not Lu Dehua or Zhang Xueyo. Everyone in the world should know you, right? Lu Shu. Lu as in willow, tree as in willow. Lu Shu said with a smile. This name is easy to remember, right? Everyone calls me Hatong Lu. My name is Fang Yan. It's the flame of 2 fires, Fang Yan said. My name is even easier to remember. Everyone calls me Fang Huahua. Although I don't really like this nickname. Then we really know each other. You can say that. Fang Yan nodded. Now you can tell me, what did I say wrong? I have bones. Fang Yan stretched out his arm and said, If you don't believe me, feel it. Chapter 149. Can a person eat, walk, or fight without a bone? Fang Yan hated being wrong the most. So, he wanted to use his actions to prove to them that he had a bone. Touch it, touch it. Fang Yan extended his arm in front of the willow tree and said, What you see may be fake, but what you feel is real. Touch the bones of my fingers, touch the bones of my elbows, touch the bones of my vertebrae. Of course, the willow tree wouldn't touch it with his hands. He looked at Fang Yan like he was crazy, and said to Lu Chaoga, Is this person sick? Too much. Fang Yan was angry. Just now you said I have no bones, and now you say I'm sick. How can you be like this? How can you casually say someone is sick? You're not the genius Dr. Qin Luo. You can tell if someone has a heart problem, just by looking at their forehead, or if they have a kidney deficiency, just by looking at their face. Let me tell you, my body is fine. The willow tree's mouth opened and closed, but he didn't know what to say. He was a famous playboy in Flower City, a Casanova of the masses. Whether it was a young lady, a pure lowly, or a gorgeous young married woman, he could talk and laugh with them without end. Why did he suddenly feel a lack of words when he met this guy? He felt something was wrong. He called him a spineless person because he didn't have a sense of responsibility and couldn't stand up for Lu Chaoga to defend against their arrival and bear the possible risks. He said he was sick because he really put his arm in front of him to let others feel if he had any bones. Wrong topic. Yes, he was willing to twist his words and bring it up to this awkward and funny topic in order to make himself laugh and embarrass himself. Understanding this, the willow tree couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Fang Yan and said, "Do you think you're very funny? Don't praise me like that. Do you think that I won't be able to deal with you if you do this? Why do you want to deal with me? Aren't we friends?" Fang Yan said in shock. The willow tree was at a loss for words, but the little brothers behind him began to clamor. "Young Master Lu, why are you wasting your breath on him? Why don't we just kill him? Using a wine bottle to break his scoop, this is our specialty. A little teacher dares to act cool in front of our young Master Lu? Why don't you take a mirror and look at yourself?" Fang Yan didn't pay attention to the curses of his little brothers. He looked at the willow tree with a smile and said, "I want to tell you a secret." "What secret?" the willow tree asked. "I'll tell you, but you can't spread it." "Of course," said the willow tree. "However, my mouth has never been reliable." "I'm relieved to hear that," Fang Yan said. He pointed at Jiang Zhulu and said with a smile, "I've known young Master Jiang for a long time. He didn't tell you, did he?" The willow tree turned around and glanced at Jiang Zhulu. "There are many people in Flower City who know Jiang Zhulu. So what?" The muscles on Jiang Zhulu's face twitched imperceptibly. He had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Fang Yan didn't disappoint him. "He provoked me, so I broke his head," said Fang Yan. "I can understand. He definitely wouldn't tell you such an embarrassing thing." Boom! The crowd was in an uproar. This guy actually injured Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 young masters of Flower City? The willow tree's eyes trembled slightly. His expression when he looked at Fang Yan changed slightly. He knew better than anyone what kind of personality Jiang Zhulu had. He was a gentleman on the surface, but he was a ferocious wolf and mad dog in the dark. He viewed his face as important as his life. If anyone offended him, he would fight them to the death. Other than the fact that the 2 families were in-laws, the willow tree was also willing to be close to Jiang Zhulu for this reason. Who would want to be enemies with a mad dog? However, Jiang Zhulu provoked Fang Yan, and he broke his head. How could there be such a thing? Jiang Zhulu's head was broken, and the culprit who injured him was still alive and well, accompanying Lu Chaoga to eat a candlelit dinner. What kind of background did this guy have? The information contained in Fang Yan's words was too much. The willow tree had no choice but to carefully consider it. What was even more hateful was that Jiang Zhulu clearly knew what kind of person Fang Yan was. But he didn't warn him at all, and allowed him to have a conflict with him. He suggested for him to accompany him to drink with Lu Chaoga. He should be trying to make use of him, right? His thoughts turned in a flash. The willow tree immediately redefined his role in this conflict. "Do you think I'll believe you?" The willow tree sneered. "This is the first time we've met, right? I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from. So why should I believe what you say? Why don't you believe me?" Fang Yan's face was full of anger, as if he had suffered a great grievance. He looked at Jiang Zhulu and said, tell them, did I break your head?" Jiang Zhulu's expression was ferocious. He wanted nothing more than to slap Fang Yan to death on the spot. "You asked such a question. How do you want me to answer? Have you considered my feelings?" The willow tree turned to look at Jiang Zhulu and said with a smile, "Zhulu, is this true? This guy's mouth is full of lies. In any case, I don't believe him." Fang Yan looked at the willow tree thoughtfully. This careless guy with a hedonistic appearance was not simple at all. With just a few words, he had dissociated himself from the matter and dragged Jiang Zhulu back into the fray, making him confront him directly. Such an opponent made it impossible to not be on guard. Jiang Zhulu was in a dilemma. He said he didn't, but the image of Fang Yan slapping him again and again was like a thick sore that had taken root and sprouted on his body. If he didn't squeeze the thick fluid out, his body would forever be in pain, and his heart would never be at peace. If his answer was yes, then how could he, Jiang Zhongzhu, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, establish himself in the circle of young masters in Huaqing? He couldn't even deal with a school teacher. This in itself was a sign of incompetence. "Tell him the answer," Fang Yan said to Jiang Zhulu. "If you dare to say no, then I won't admit to it anymore." Even Lu Chaoge was shocked by Fang Yan's words. Previously, when Fang Yan said he slapped Jiang Zhulu, she, like the others, didn't believe it. However, looking at Jiang Zhulio's expression, it was possible that something like that really happened. This seemingly harmless guy was actually so ferocious when he was angry? And when did this happen? Why hadn't she heard of it before? Revenge is a dish best served cold. Our debt will be settled slowly. Jiang Zhulu laughed. His smile was gentle, but his eyes were filled with murderous intent. I'm not in a hurry. You don't have to be either. Lu Shu was shocked. He looked at Jiang Zhulu and didn't speak rashly. Jiang Zhulu didn't deny it. This matter had already been confirmed. Since the two of them already had a grudge, there was no need for him to jump out and be cannon fodder. However, this guy was really annoying. Fang Yan looked at Lu Shu and said, Look, Jiang Zhulu of the four prodigies of Huaqing was beaten badly by me. In the end, he could only say some harsh words to me. If I did this to you, you'd be standing here awkwardly, wouldn't you? Is this a threat? Are you sure you can walk out of this private room after hitting me? Lu Shu squinted his eyes. Are you sure you can walk out of Air Force One? You don't understand what I mean. Fang Yan said with a smile. What I mean is you guys are wearing custom-made clothes and leather shoes from British or French designers. There's no need for you guys to have a grudge with a guy like me, who wears a $200 Rosefinch secondary teacher uniform, right? If you spit on me, I can wipe it off with a tissue and continue wearing it. I won't feel disgusted. However, if I spit on you guys won't be able to take it and throw away your clothes, right? What a pity. That's true. Lu Shu nodded. Porcelain shouldn't collide with earthen jars. Young Master Lu is a smart person. You're much wiser than young Master Jiang. Fang Yan said with praise. He didn't forget to put medicine in the eyes of these two brothers. In any case, the little secret, he told Lu Shu, had already planted a thorn in their hearts. They just had to wait for the day that thorn to grow and pierce through their flesh. But what if the earthen jar touches the porcelain? What should we do? Lu Shu asked. That kind of thing will never happen. Fang Yan said. I don't have money, connections, or looks like you guys. Why should I offend you guys? I'm just a little teacher. I want to teach my students well. My biggest dream is to let them beat class 1 in the next exam. Why should I touch you guys? Why should I get involved in these boring things that I don't understand at all? You guys are fighting in the real world, and I'm watching family gossip on TV. If it wasn't for today's dinner, we might never see each other again. The dishes are getting cold. Don't disturb our dinner, okay? Lu Shu looked at Jiang Zhulu, meaning to say, You should solve the problem yourself. Jiang Zhulu smiled at Lu Chaoge and said, Since it's not convenient for you today, let's go back and have a good talk. I wish you a good appetite. Under Jiang Zhulio's lead, the group walked out in a line. However, everyone couldn't help but glance at the spot where Fang Yan was standing when they stepped out of the door. They could guarantee that they would never forget this delicate yet incomparably arrogant face. The private room regained its silence. Fang Yan sat back in his chair and stuffed the tablecloth back into his chest. He said, Let's eat. The dishes are getting cold. Lu Chaoge looked at Fang Yan with a complicated expression, as if it was the first time they met. Chapter 150. Human Ruffian, Lu Shu said. This kind of person is a human ruffian. The so-called human ruffian was someone who placed himself in a very low position. If he told others that he was a pile of shit, and you stepped on him, wouldn't that be dirtying the soles of your shoes? If you were barefoot or wearing a pair of cloth shoes, it didn't matter if you stepped on him. At most, you could wash your feet or change your shoes. If you were wearing a pair of expensive leather shoes, made by a famous designer in Milan, it would be bad to step on it. Although they didn't care about the price of a pair of leather shoes, they didn't like the stench that came from their feet all the time. There's a popular law of garbage people in society now. Jiang Zhulu smiled bitterly and said, A lot of people are like garbage people. They run around and are full of negative garbage. They are full of frustration, anger, jealousy, scheming, hatred, arrogance and prejudice, greed and inadequacy, complaining, comparing, and can't stand to see others better than them. As more and more garbage accumulates in their hearts, they need to find a place to dump it. Unfortunately, I happened to meet such a person. I was spat on, but I couldn't do anything as vulgar and rude as him. So it's over? Lu Shu swirled the red wine glass in his hand and asked with a smile. Two women sat on either side of him. One was young and fashionable, and the other was full of charm. The two women were beautiful, and they didn't look like prostitutes at all. One look, and you could tell that they were ladies from respectable families. The two women looked peaceful and friendly on the surface, but their words and actions were hidden with murderous intent. In order to win Lu Shu's favor, they always had to get rid of their opponents first. This was exactly what Lu Shu liked. He liked women to fight for his affections, and he liked women to plot against each other for his sake. Moreover, he was a very fair judge. The final winner would eventually enter his arms and become the woman he loved dearly. A temporary woman. This was a game, but he never got tired of it. Of the four beauties of Huaqing, Lu Shu was the most romantic by nature. He was invincible in the field of love and had never lost. Let it go. Jiang Zhulu squinted his eyes and smiled. He gulped down the unfermented red wine in his hand and said with a smile, "How could I let it go like this?" "Young Master Jiang, who is this guy?" someone asked curiously. "Is that important?" Jiang Zhulu sneered. "This is Flower City." "Yes, this is Flower City." The willow tree nodded. He reached out and hugged the sexy and plump woman. On the other side, the young and inexperienced girl immediately blushed and felt extremely sad. "This is our territory. We can do whatever we want." "Do what you want." Jiang Zhulu poured himself another glass of red wine and said, "Lu Chaoga seems to be going further and further." "You still like her?" The willow tree laughed out loud. "I really didn't expect that one of our Flower City's four prodigies, young Master Jiang, would actually be so infatuated with love. There are plenty of fish in the sea, so why should I have a one-sided love for a flower? Have you ever thought that the Lu Chaoga that you have bitterly loved for so many years might have already been taken by that little teacher?" They hugged, kissed, and caressed. That scoundrel used all the methods he could think of to possess her. If you think that way, don't you like her even more? Jiang Zhulu was trying to use him to fight against Fang Yan. This made Lu Shu feel extremely uncomfortable. If he could make Jiang Zhulu feel uncomfortable, he didn't mind fulfilling his wish. "Lu Shu, do you believe that I won't tear your stinky mouth apart?" Jiang Zhulu fiercely stared at the willow tree and said, "Ha ha ha, did I hit your sore spot? Everything is possible." The willow tree laughed wildly, as if he had encountered the most hilarious thing in the world. As the two top young masters, Lu Shu and Jiang Zhulu, bickered, everyone else was silent. They lowered their heads to drink and eat, pretending not to hear what they were saying. A fight of this level wasn't something they could interfere with. If Fang Yan suddenly beat up Lu Shu or Jiang Zhulu in anger, Lu Chaoga wouldn't find it strange at all. Didn't Qinya Haowu of the Warren Investigation Group sneak attack Tang Qing from the back like this? It was simply impossible for him to abide by discipline, rules, or to constantly pay attention to his surroundings and maintain his rationality. Fang Yan didn't care about Lu Shu and Jiang Zhuliu's identities and backgrounds. If they really provoked him, he didn't mind teaching them a lesson, just like how he knew Jiang Zhuliu's personality from slapping him in the face. However, Fang Yan didn't beat them up. Moreover, not only did he not beat them up, but he also planted a patch of thorns on Jiang Zhuliu's skin with a few simple words. When they wanted to get closer again, the patch of thorns would pop out and stab each other's bodies, making it difficult for them to hug each other as tightly as before. Fang Yan wasn't a martial artist, but a boorish man. He was scheming and intelligent. Martial arts experts were cultured. Just thinking about it was scary. Fang Yan cut a piece of beef and stuffed it into his mouth. He chewed it gently and enjoyed the extreme taste of the snowflake beef ribs flown in from Australia. "Eat. The food is getting cold," Fang Yan reminded Lu Chaoga when he saw her standing there motionlessly. Lu Chaoga pulled out a chair and sat across from Fang Yan. She picked up the knife and fork and unconsciously cut the steak, but she didn't have any appetite. A luxurious car, a luxurious house, a luxurious dress, and a publicly recognized proud daughter of heaven, Fang Yan said. It seems like you aren't living as well as we thought. Who has it easy? Lu Chaoga said expressionlessly. Everyone has their own difficulties. You have your difficulties. Lu Shu has his difficulties, and Jiang Julu also has. You were right to reject Jiang Julu, Fang Yin said. This person has no bearing. We were just having a meal together as normal subordinates and friends. And then he brought his people over to cause trouble. Is this what a man should do? Anyway, I can't do it. If you were him, what would you do? Lu Chaoga asked. I would directly beat myself up, then pull out a chair and sit across from you, Fang Yin said. If you don't have bearing, then do things with generosity. You have to have a different temperament to attract women, especially a woman like you. Am I right? What is your different temperament? Me. Fang Yin thought seriously and said, the natural kindness in my bones. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. The rainwater on the ground that couldn't be drained in time was rising, and it was already overflowing the mountains. The wind was howling, and the black clouds were rolling. The rain was so dense that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. I will send you back, Lu Chaoga said while looking at the rain outside. If I had a car, I would say this to you, Fang Yin said with embarrassment. There was still some distance between the main entrance of Sky Number 1 and the parking lot. The security guard ran over with 2 umbrellas, one big and one small. He used the small umbrella to cover himself, and the big umbrella to cover Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga, ready to send them to the parking lot to pick up the car. Swoosh! Fang Yan's shoes were drenched as soon as they came out of the rainforest. Lu Chaoga, who was wearing high heels, actually had some advantage in the air. The rain was heavy and rapid. Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga's bodies could only stick close to each other to avoid being drenched by the splashing rain. Lu Chaoga's uniform skirt was blown by the strong wind, sticking tightly to her thighs. Her exposed calves were snow-white and dazzling. When the raindrops landed on them, it gave people a faint feeling of being wet and seductive. A faint fragrance, like the fragrance of orchids, came to their noses. It was very pleasant. Even with the heavy rain and the strong wind, Lu Chaoga still walked calmly and elegantly. This woman was indeed outstanding in her own way. In order to take care of the guests, the security guard's clothes were drenched, dripping with water. Sorry to trouble you, Fang Yin said with embarrassment. It's my job. The security guard smiled honestly. When he smiled, 2 small dimples appeared on his face. According to physiognomy, people with small dimples on their faces loved others more. It seemed that he must be a good son and a good husband. After a pause, he said, You are different from the other guests. How is it different? No one said thank you before, the security guard said. In order to block the strong wind from behind and the falling rain, the security guard tried his best to lower the umbrella. Fang Yin and Lu Chaoga could only look forward. Their line of sight behind was completely blocked. Rumble lightning flashed and thunder roared. White light streaked across the sky. It was as if the sky was about to be torn apart. For no reason, Fang Yin suddenly felt goosebumps all over his body. There was a strong chill on his back. Danger! Get out of the way, Fang Yin roared. He suddenly pushed Lu Chaoga to the side, and the 2 of them rolled and slid in the rain. When the security guard heard Fang Yin shout, he didn't react at all. Before he could turn around, his body was sent flying into the air like a kite with a broken string. His pupils widened. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. Everything was fine. Why was there a super off-road vehicle rushing over from behind? Even if there was a car driving over, they should have turned on the lights and honked. Why did they sneak over? And how could they drive at such a fast speed in front of the restaurant? He couldn't understand. Bang! His body landed heavily on the ground and slid a long distance in the muddy ground before stopping. Xiaobao. He tried hard to call out the name, but a large amount of thick blood spurted out of his mouth. Soon enough, his body stopped twitching. His eyes were wide open. He died with a grievance. The small black umbrella in his hand flew out, fluttering in the air, carried by the strong wind to an unknown place. Chapter 151. One flower, one world, one leaf, one Bodhi. Under the vast galaxy and endless starry sky, he was just an insignificant person. But in the hearts of his family, his parents, his wife, and his children, he was the whole world. An insignificant person had flesh and blood. He had family, friends, parents with gray hair, a wife who knew how to cry, and ignorant and helpless children. He didn't want to die. He also wanted to live. But would the executioner discuss with them in advance? Would they ask for their opinions when they were harvesting lives? No one cared about their life or death. Even if their names appeared on the newspaper, they would soon be drowned out by the scandals of celebrities and even more miserable lives. He was just a small security guard. No one even remembered his name, except for his family. His body lay in the muddy water, cold, wet, stiff, unwilling, broken, and badly mutilated. No one heard his last murmur. No one heard the name Xiaobao. That was his son who had just turned 1 month old. That was his flesh and blood that he was unwilling to part with. But who cared? It was a black Toyota off-road. It didn't turn on the headlights or honk the horn. It sped through the heavy rain, and under the cover of the lightning and thunder, without any warning, it charged towards their backs, towards their defenseless bodies. This was murder. The Toyota off-road did not stop at all after crashing into the person. It ran wildly toward the exit of the restaurant. This scene was so sudden and violent that no one could make an effective response. When Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga stopped rolling, when Fang Yan got up from the ground and wanted to chase after them, the Toyota off-road had already rushed to the main road and soon disappeared in the storm. They couldn't catch up with it. They couldn't kill it. It made them feel powerless and humiliated. More and more people gathered. The security guard, the staff, and the distinguished guests at the door. Fang Yan squatted in the rain beside the security guard. He reached out to touch his chest, but there was no longer any breath. He was dead. Sorry to trouble you, Fang Yan said. It's my job. The security guard smiled honestly. You are different from the other guests. How is it different? No one said thank you before. The person who was just talking to him warmly a moment ago had already been separated by life and death. Fang Yan regretted that he did not spend more time with him, and did not thank him properly. He should have taken him to a restaurant, not too high class, preferably a roadside food stall. They would not drink Maotai or Wuliangya, but a bottle of Xiaodao or Erguotu. Everyone would roll up their sleeves, play a guessing game, grease their mouths, slap the table, curse, and get drunk. There was also a deep sense of guilt. I'm the same as them, Fang Yan said to the security guard in his heart with tears in his eyes. When danger approached, his first reaction was to throw Lu Chaoga to the ground. Yes, in that extremely dangerous situation where he had no time to think, he chose to save Lu Chaoga, who he was more familiar with. He saved her life, but at the same time, he gave up on her. He was just a security guard. Who cares? He was just a security guard who would care. He was just a security guard who would care. Lu Jinju, wake up. Lu Jinju. Someone shook his body and shouted. His name was Lu Jinju. Although he was just a security guard, it did not prevent his parents from giving him such a shiny name. Just like he was a security guard, but he also named his son Xiaobao. There was a difference in status, but there was no family love. What's going on? What's going on? Call the police. Someone died, call the police. A security guard was crushed to death. What bad luck to encounter such a thing while having a meal. The rain was pattering, and the wind was howling. From time to time, lightning flashed in the sky, illuminating all the filth on the ground. Countless sounds echoed in his ears, and countless faces appeared in his mind. Fang Yan looked like he was scared out of his wits. He squatted there without moving. What's going on? Did you see that? What happened? Someone shouted at him. I saw it, Fang Yan said. Someone killed him with a car. What car? A black Toyota off-road. What license plate? I didn't see it clearly. Lu Shu, Jiang Zhulu, and the others also came out. They were shocked to see Fang Yan beside the dead body, and Lu Chaoga, who was sitting on the ground and still couldn't get up. Jiang Zhulu took off his suit jacket and quickly ran to Lu Chaoga. He put the suit jacket on Lu Chaoga's head, then bent down to pick her up and ran to the hotel lobby. Lu Chaoga's right knee was bruised and blood was oozing out. The blood mixed with the rainwater on her leg and was instantly diluted. Therefore, the wound seemed to be softer, and it was not so shocking. Her left leg was sprained, and her waist and leg were seriously injured in many places. Even the slightest movement would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Just the moment Fang Yan threw her to the ground was enough to make her dizzy. Rolling all the way on the concrete floor caused her serious injuries, and there were many cuts on her body. Jiang Zhulu put Lu Chaoga on the sofa in the lobby and asked anxiously, "Lu Chaoga, are you okay? How do you feel?" Lu Chaoga shook her head and looked at Fang Yan through the glass wall in the rain. Her eyes were sad. "What happened? Why did this happen?" Jiang Zhulu was like an enraged lion, shouting angrily. "It's just a meal. How could someone be injured like this? Who did it?" Lu Chaoga remained silent and didn't answer. Jiang Zhulu turned around and shouted to little Fatso, "Zhang Wei, call your dad. Ask him to investigate for me. No matter who did it, ask him to find the person." Little Fatso nodded and walked out quickly. "Du-san, call your uncle and ask him to help me find the person. Tell him that I, Jiang Zhulu, owe him a favor." A skinny monkey-like man answered and ran out as well. Lu Shu walked to Jiang Zhulu with a serious expression and patted him on the shoulder. "Calm down. How can I calm down when Chaoga is injured like this?" Jiang Zhulu said coldly. "Have you thought about it?" Lu Shu smiled darkly. "Who's the biggest suspect now that something like this happened?" Jiang Zhu looked at the willow tree with a stunned expression. He immediately understood what the willow tree was trying to say. "Something unpleasant just happened between us. Why did they get into a car accident right after they left?" Lu Shu said seriously, "I've already asked around. Someone drove a car into them from behind. If it weren't for that kid's quick reflexes, Lu Chaoga would be dead already." "Who?" Jiang Zhulu asked. "How would I know?" The willow tree shrugged helplessly. "I don't know. All I know is that you're the biggest suspect now. How could I do something like this? Why can't you do something like this? The world is dangerous and people are evil." Lu Shu sighed. Fang Yan's clothes were soaked. Not just his body, but his heart as well. His head and face were drenched in rain, and his hair stuck to his scalp like a black skullcap. He clenched his teeth and strode toward the lobby of the restaurant. He stared at Lu Xiaoga with a fierce look, as if he was about to devour him. Seeing Fang Yan's fierce look, Jiang Zhulu immediately stood in front of Lu Chaoga and pointed at Fang Yan. "Fang Yan, what are you doing?" Screech. Fang Yan didn't say anything. He just grabbed Jiang Zhulio's finger with lightning speed. Fang Yan let go. Jiang Zhulio's finger hurt, and he couldn't move his body. "Harder! Harder!" Jiang Zhulio's finger was bent by him. Crack! A crisp sound rang out, and Jiang Zhulio's finger was forcefully broken. Lu Shu was about to step forward to stop Fang Yan, but the two bodyguards behind him had already surrounded Fang Yan from both sides. Horsetail whisk. Fang Yan grabbed the shoulder of one of the bodyguards. With a twist of his body, a strong airflow appeared, and the bodyguard was sent flying. Bang! His body fell heavily on the wall. His face was bleeding, and he couldn't get up anymore. The other bodyguard's hand had already touched Fang Yan's chest, but Fang Yan quickly rushed forward and took the initiative to use his body to meet his fist, toppling the mountains and overturning the seas. Bang! The bodyguard in black let out a blood-curdling scream as he flew backwards and fell to the ground. The arm that Fang Yan used to push his chest had lost all feeling. More people rushed toward Fang Yan. Fang Yan didn't dodge and attacked every enemy he saw. Those who stretched out their arms broke their arms. Those who stretched out their legs broke their legs. Those who used both their arms and legs broke their arms and legs. Very soon, there was no one in front of him to stop him. The ground was filled with screams and wails, but Fang Yan turned a blind eye to them. "Fang Yan, you better know what you're doing right now." Lu Shu snorted. "I've never been more clear-headed than now." Fang Yan said, "If I had beaten you up just now, I'm afraid the current situation would be better." Lu Shu stared coldly at Fang Yan, who was displaying his invincible might. The two women beside him, one on his left and the other on his right, looked terrified. Fang Yan walked in front of Lu Chaoga, picked her up, and quickly walked toward the private room. Bang! Fang Yan kicked open an empty private room and threw Lu Chaoga's body on the sofa inside the private room. His eyes were bloodshot, and he shouted hoarsely, Lu Chaoga. How long are you going to use me? Chapter 152. Her long hair was tangled and looked very messy, and it was wet and scattered over her shoulders. His face and forehead had several cuts of different depths, and each cut was oozing out thick or thin wisps of blood. Her clothes were soaked, and the white shirt on her upper body was in a translucent state, and the black bra inside was faintly discernible. The silver-gray pencil skirt was tightly ironed on her body, perfectly outlining the exquisite curves, and naked tempted the eyes of the onlookers. In the process of falling and rolling, 2 buttons on her shirt were pulled out, and a big hole was torn in the pencil skirt. They were barely able to cover the important parts of her body, but there was still a large area of her snow-white skin exposed in the air. The independent private room, the wet mature woman, the torn expensive clothes, and even the wounds on her face and knees were the culprits that triggered a man's adrenaline rush. The bag that Lu Chaoga carried with her was gone, and her cell phone, keys, and other items were also gone. She had nothing on her now, and was just an unlucky woman who was injured. Fang Yan threw her body on the sofa with great force, and in the process of flying and falling in the air, it once again affected her sprained leg bone and waist. She put her hands on the sofa, gritted her teeth, and sat up little by little. She had to sit up, and she had to straighten her back, so that she could look more dignified and strong. She didn't want to be a yes man, and she was even more disdainful of using a woman's natural softness and weakness to win a man's sympathy. Lu Chaoga sat up straight and combed her hair with her fingers, preventing the long hair from covering her face and eyes. She looked at Fang Yan calmly and said, "I'm also very sad that he's dead. I'm very sorry, and I don't know how to apologize and make up for it." "What's the use of apologizing? He's already dead. What's the use of apologizing?" Fang Yan roared. "What are you going to use to make up for it? Can you be his parent's son? Can you replace him as his wife's husband and child's father? Lu Chaoga, you're not omnipotent, you can't do anything." "Yes," Lu Chaoga said. "I can't do anything." He couldn't even protect his own life. "I'm just a nobody, just like that security guard." "Lu Chaoga, what exactly do you want?" Fang Yan stared coldly at Lu Chaoga and said with hatred, "How many times have I told you? I'm not stupid. Have you been questioning my words all this time? I can joke about everything, but I will never joke about my intelligence and my life with you. You think I don't know what you've done? What do I have to do with you? Did I hold your hand? Did I touch your breasts? Did I have sex with you? I didn't do anything. Why does Jiang Zhulu view me as a mortal enemy? Why do so many people want to get rid of me? Lu Chaoga, you did it on purpose. You purposely maintained a close relationship with me. You purposely pushed me out to attract the firepower for you. When I first came to school, you admired me, but you always kept your distance. What have you been doing these days? You asked Xiaoming to call me to the office every day. You pretended to discuss everything with me, big or small, even things that had nothing to do with me. Do you think I didn't suspect your motive at all? Also, who was the one who spread the rumors in school? You're the vice principal of the school. If you want to control them, would they dare to discuss these topics in the office? What do you want to say? You want to say that you didn't. Of course you didn't. You're the vice principal of the school. You're the high and mighty ice goddess. Of course you wouldn't take the initiative to run out and tell others that I'm related to Fang Yan and that we're in love. Of course you wouldn't do such a stupid thing. But do you dare to say that you didn't add fuel to the fire in the dark? You didn't let it develop? Lu Chaoga looked gloomy and kept silent. Lu Chaoga, I know what kind of woman you are. You're proud and arrogant. You never put anyone in your eyes. Although I think I'm very good, I really didn't think that I could enter your eyes. On the first day I came, Zheng Jing, your office director, reminded me to be careful and keep a distance from you. Now it seems that he wasn't all bad. That night, you leaned your head on my shoulder to intensify the conflict, right? Why? You didn't have to do that, but why did you do that? To teach those who hide in the shadows a lesson? Because you two quarreled, I became the punching bag for you to take revenge on him. Or, you felt the danger, so you sped up your actions so that they would focus their attention and revenge on me? Even if you die, you want to drag me to die with you? Do I occupy such an important position in your heart? Fang Yin stretched out his hands to grab Lu Chaoga's shoulders. He asked in a disgusted tone, Lu Chaoga, say something. Give me an explanation, give me an answer. You used me so many times and almost took away my life. You have to give me an explanation, right? Lu Chaoga calmly looked at Wen Yan's face, that had become distorted at this moment. She said, You're smarter than I thought and more powerful than I expected. Since you've guessed everything, what else do you want to know? What do I want to know? I want to know everything. Fang Yin pushed Lu Chaoga to the ground. I knew you used me, over and over again. In the past, I thought you were pretty and not a bad person, so I was willing to do some things for you. But now someone is dead. The security guard who was chatting with us just now is dead. He died right under our noses. You have to give me a clear explanation. Why did you do that? Who wanted to kill you? Why did they want to kill you? I also want to know who wanted to kill me. Lu Chaoga stubbornly climbed up again. A mocking smile appeared on her face. I also want to know who wanted to kill me. Where can I find the answer? Who can tell me the answer? Her eyes reddened and then became moist. If possible, also tell me, who killed my parents? Why did they want to kill them? Why? At. Fang Yan's eyes widened. He looked at Lu Chaoga in disbelief. There was actually such a thing. Lu Chaoga's parents were already gone? Wasn't she a noble daughter? Wasn't she a match for Jiang Zhulu? Their parents didn't arrange their marriage. Jiang Zhulu fell in love with Lu Chaoga at first sight. Lu Chaoga was deeply in love with the loser outside. Her parents tried to stop her lover. But in the end, the rich girl and the loser man got married. Or the lover turned into a butterfly. The former was Prince Charming, and the latter was Butterfly Lovers. Wasn't the story like this? Why was it so different from what Fang Yin had guessed? However, if Lu Chaoga's parents were already dead, then who was she living with now? How did she get her expensive clothes and luxurious cars worth millions every day? Just the salary of a vice principal shouldn't be enough to support her expenses. Fang Yin remembered clearly that the dinner tonight cost nearly 10,000 yuan. That was a month's salary for many people. What happened? Fang Yin asked in a hoarse voice. After so many years, I can't even remember what they look like. Maybe I subconsciously don't want to think about it. Because every time I think about it. Lu Chaoga's voice paused for a few seconds. It was as if she was thinking about how to phrase her words. However, she was stumped by this question. After a long time he continued. Maybe he shed too many tears when he was young, and his tears dried up. So, I don't know how to cry now. At that time, I was too young and didn't understand a lot of things. I only remember that I was still in elementary school. Auntie suddenly came to school during class. She said a few words to the teacher, and then took me back. That was my least favorite language class. I was so happy that I didn't have to go to class anymore. On the way back, Auntie hugged me and cried nonstop. She kept talking about what to do in the future. What to do in the future? Only then did I know that my parents had passed away. They died on a trip. In the country that was known as the closest to heaven, they were robbed by gangsters. They refused to hand over their belongings, so those vicious gangsters with knives killed them all. They passed away just like that. I couldn't even see them for the last time. Auntie and King Long Tan went abroad to handle the funeral. My parents, they became a small urn. What happened after that? Fang Yin asked. After that, Auntie had to go abroad to work. I was taken to live with King Long Tan. Except for the years I went abroad to study and work. Until now, Lu Chaoga said. Why? Fang Yin frowned and asked. He felt that there was something wrong with this matter, but he couldn't tell what was wrong with it at the moment. King Long Tan is Jiang Zhuya's father? He is friends with your father? Or are you saying that your families are related? They are very good friends and business partners, Lu Chaoga said. My parents are engineers. They mainly research renewable energy. My parents invested their technology, and King Long Tan invested money. They formed a company together, which is now the famous Longta Group. I know a little about Longta Group. It started with energy technology, and has developed rapidly. It is now a comprehensive business empire. In the field of energy technology, Longta can be ranked in the top 5 in the former country, and the number 1 in Lingnan. Fang Yin thought about it and said, I heard you calling King Longtan's name. He takes care of you so much. Don't you have the slightest bit of respect for him? Chapter 153. The grace of a drop of water must be repaid with a fountain of water. After Lu Chaoga's parents passed away, King Longtan adopted her and provided for her to eat. Logically speaking, Lu Chaoga should be grateful to the Jiang family. How could she call his name so emotionlessly? Fang Yin was very sensitive to details, so he easily found the problem in Lu Chaoga's words. You think I should be grateful to him, right? A sneer appeared on Lu Chaoga's face. Everyone in the world thinks that I should be grateful to him. If he hadn't adopted me, I would have been alone and without anyone to rely on. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to study abroad, and I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. If it wasn't for him, I would have nothing. I would have been a nameless, ordinary woman who couldn't even dream of having a meal at Sky Number 1. So, I want to call King Longtan my adoptive father, and I want to marry his son, Jiang Zhulu. I want to give them everything they want. I can't refuse or resist, or else I'll be disloyal, unfilial, heartless, and unjust. Is this the only way I can repay them for adopting me? Is this the only way I can be a grateful, affectionate, and righteous woman? You, Fang Yin thought for a moment, then said, you seem to be very depressed. Depressed? Lu Chaoga laughed out loud. This is depression. My parents died for no reason, but I was adopted by a family that might be the murderer. My aunt was threatened, went abroad, and never took the initiative to contact me again. When she left, she told me that she was going to the United States, but I couldn't find any trace of her being there when I went to study there. My parents own 49% of the shares in the Longta Group, but as their only heir, I've never seen any profits, only the so-called dividends that they pay into my card every year. Outsiders only see that I'm living a luxurious life, luxurious cars, and luxurious houses, so they think that the Jiang family treats me like their own child. But how much profit do they take from the company? They smile at each other every day, and they look kind and kind. One of them announced to everyone that I was the best candidate for her daughter-in-law, while the other treated me like his own daughter, not even comparable to his own son. Everyone praised her for being a good mother, and everyone praised him for being a good father. However, the more they acted like this, the more I couldn't resist them. Otherwise, you're heartless, ungrateful, and vicious. Even when I wanted to live outside, I was rejected by them. They said that living together as a family would be more intimate and warm. Should I be grateful? Lu Chaoga stared at Fang Yin and asked, should I thank them? You said I don't know how to smile. How can I smile in such an environment? Fang Yin didn't expect Lu Chaoga's background to be so complicated, nor did he expect her to live in such a harsh environment. Even if there was no real evidence, she had already determined that the Jiang family had something to do with her parents' death. However, she could pretend that nothing had happened and live with them calmly and naturally, as if she was really a family with them. How strong and tenacious was this woman's endurance? How broad-minded was he? Fang Yin didn't think he could do it. If he stood in Lu Chaoga's position, he would have fought with them fiercely. However, Lu Chaoga did it. She was looking for evidence, and she was waiting for the best opportunity. Is this King Longtan or Jiang Biaha? Fang Yin said angrily. The more kind and righteous a person is on the surface, the more immoral they are when they do bad things. You said that King Longtan might be the murderer of your parents. Do you have any evidence? No. Lu Chaoga shook her head. When they had the accident, I was too young. I didn't have time to see them for the last time. My aunt couldn't bring back their bodies, and only a part of their ashes was burned together. After so many years, if the other party was careful, how could I find any evidence? Your aunt might know something. Fang Yin said. Did you look for her again? Yes. Lu Chaoga said angrily. It was like she disappeared from this world. Or maybe she really disappeared. It was because I couldn't find her that I began to suspect that my parents' death might be a conspiracy. This suspicion is very reasonable, Fang Yin said. His eyes were cold, and he said with a murderous look. In other words, this car accident might have been arranged by the Jiang family? I don't know, Lu Chaoga said. All my property and connections are under their surveillance. I don't have anyone I can use. Even if I wanted to investigate something, it would be difficult to do it independently. Your appearance is a variable. Then, why did you suddenly start to use me more? You're much closer to me now than before. Because I feel danger, Lu Chaoga said. In the past, they've never urged me to marry Jiang Zhulu like this. What if we get married? I'll become a member of the Jiang family, Lu Chaoga said. In other words, the Jiang family has complete control over the Longta group? Yes, Lu Chaoga said. One of the executives in the Longta group was my father's classmate. He told me that Qiang Longtan has been quietly diluting the shares that belong to my father. Recently, he even tried to change the name of the patent that originally belonged to my parents. If the owner of the patent changed it, then it would be easy for them to kick my father and me out of the Longta group. The Lu family will no longer have anything to do with the Longta group. They really have to be tough with both hands. Fang Yin sneered. On one hand, they want you to become a member of the Jiang family. This way it will be easier for them to control you. They will even force you to agree to change the owner of the patent. On the other hand, they take care of you in every possible way. If you jump out and fight with them for the shares, I'm afraid everyone will stand up and blame you. Fang Yin looked at Lu Chaoga and said, since they want you to become a member of the Jiang family, why did this happen today? They are here for you, they want to kill you. I don't know. Lu Chaoga shook her head. I don't know anything, just like you. I have never understood them, and I don't know how to understand them. You would never be able to experience that kind of feeling. Even if everyone sat at the same table to eat, everyone's face was covered with a thick layer of film. Everything could be a disguise. Every one of them was a master of acting. I have lived in the Jiang family for so many years, so I learned to act like them. I learned to be calm and collected, and learned that no one can read my mind. This is my biggest gain. Sadness is not a reason to be forgiven. That security guard died because of me. I feel very guilty, but I have no other choice. Lu Chaoga said. I should have died with him. You helped me make the choice. You saved my life. They are insane. A living being was sent flying by them just like that. They want to kill you and me at the same time. It doesn't matter to them whether they kill one person or 3 people. Fang Yan's anger completely exploded, and he said in a cold voice, I don't care who they are, no matter what their status is. If they want me dead, I will never let them live well. I promise. Then you will be used by me again. Lu Chaoga said. In the past, it was Lu Chaoga who took the initiative to drag Fang Yan into the battlefield, and she became the vanguard of this war. After the tragedy at Sky 1, Fang Yan began to take the initiative to find out the truth of the accident, and he volunteered to join the battle. Because he couldn't let the security guard die in vain, he couldn't let himself suffer such grievances. He could ignore Lu Chaoga, he could ignore the security guard, but he couldn't ignore himself. As for the process of revenge, he would be more closely allied with Lu Chaoga, and even help her bear the main artillery fire. That wasn't the most important thing. Knock knock. Someone was knocking on the door outside. Fang Yan, come out quickly. Bring Lu Chaoga out, if anything happens to her. Jiang Zhuyo's urgent voice sounded outside the room. The person inside, listen, you are surrounded. This was the voice of a strange man. Don't act rashly. Let go of the hostage. Put your hands on your head and squat on the ground. We will attack in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Bang! The door of the room was kicked open, and a group of armed policemen rushed in, pointing their guns at Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga, who was hugging Fang Yan. Yes, Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga's bodies were tightly hugging each other. Lu Chaoga's body leaned weakly on the sofa, and Fang Yan's body was on top of her, one hand caressing under her clothes, the other hand holding her neck, pulling her upper body closer to him. They hugged passionately and kissed passionately. They were so unemotional, as if everything in this world had nothing to do with them. All they needed were those red lips and a scorching hot body. Kacha. Many people subconsciously pointed their guns at the ground. Even more people widened their eyes. Didn't they say there was a kidnapper? Why did they only see a pervert? Jiang Zhulu stood behind the crowd, Seeing the scene inside the room, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and he pointed at Fang Yan and shouted, "Fang Yan, you dare touch my woman?" "She is my woman," Fang Yan said without turning his head. Chapter 154. Jiang Zhuliu's pupils dilated, his chest was stuffy and hot, and his fingers were stinging. They were broken by Fang Yan. All kinds of discomfort mixed together, and he felt like his body was about to explode. The woman who grew up with him, the woman whom he regarded as his life partner and marriage partner, was now lying on the sofa in a sexy and seductive position. An annoying little wretch was pressing on top of her, using his hands and mouth to diligently study and work hard to obtain. Anyone who saw this scene would have the urge to pick up a knife and fight to the death. This should have been what he did, and he had imagined this scene countless times. But why did it turn out like this? Why was the truth so cruel and unacceptable? "Kill him," Jiang Zhulu shouted. "He's a kidnapper, kill him quickly." No one would really shoot someone. No one was stupid. How could they shoot someone just because of a sentence from the eldest young master of the Jiang family? Obviously, this was a couple who couldn't control themselves, so they found a private room to make out. What did it have to do with kidnappers kidnapping hostages? At most, they would be charged with the crime of corrupting social morals, which was not serious enough to shoot them to death. "Calm down." Lu Shu walked behind Jiang Zhulu, put his arm around his shoulders and said, "A lot of people are watching you. Don't let them look down on you. Don't let them see you as a joke." The pain in his fingers made Jiang Zhulu sober up gradually. He stared at Fang Yan fiercely and said, "Even if he's not a kidnapper, the evidence is conclusive that he beat and injured someone. Are we going to let the murderer get away with it?" A middle-aged police officer came out, pointed at Fang Yan and said, "Take him away." Two police officers quickly came over and dragged Fang Yan, who was still lying on Lu Chaoga's body, and their tongues entangled. Fang Yan looked at the middle-aged police officer and asked, "What did I do that you want to take me away?" "Beat and seriously injured someone. Why can't we take you away?" The middle-aged police officer said with a sneer. Jiang Zhulu didn't like people, so he naturally didn't like them either. Besides, how could a guy who would drag a woman into a private room of a restaurant to have an affair be a good person? "That was self-defense," Fang Yan said confidently. "Are there any surveillance cameras in the hotel lobby?" "Yes," the hotel manager standing outside the private room replied in a low voice. "If there is video surveillance, you can see it in the video. Someone took my girlfriend away. A group of people surrounded my girlfriend and tried to do something bad to her. They also stopped me from getting close to her. In order to protect my girlfriend, I had to take action. I did what every man in the world would do. Was this also a crime? If you want to take me away, they won't be spared either. Your girlfriend." Jiang Zhuliu's breathing was rapid, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he was about to go berserk. He said she was his girlfriend. How could his woman, his fiancée, be his girlfriend? "Men!" Jiang Zhulu shouted. "Jiang Zhulu!" The willow tree called out. "Do you know what you're doing? Where did your IQ go? There are police here. What can you do to him? 10 years is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. There will be plenty of opportunities to play him to death in the future. Why are you in such a hurry? Calm down." "I can't calm down," Jiang Zhulu said. "Willow, I can calm down about other things. But I can't do this. I know I look like an idiot right now. Let me go crazy for once. Just this once, no matter what the consequences are." Fang Yan crossed his arms and sneered. "Do you want to beat me up? This is a society governed by law." "You!" Jiang Zhulu wanted to rush over and beat up Fang Yan. The willow tree hugged Jiang Zhulu and roared. "Jiang Zhulu, didn't you notice? He is deliberately provoking you. He wants you to take the initiative to make a move. Don't fall for it." Jiang Zhulu knew he couldn't beat Fang Yan, and he also knew that his current behavior was impulsive and irrational. However, Fang Yan was too hateful. Revealing the fact that he was slapped in the face in public had already caused him to lose all face in the circle. Now, he actually slept with the woman he liked. Bullsh *T gentlemanly character. Bullsh *T aristocratic demeanor. Bullsh *T rationality and scheming. He just wanted to ruthlessly beat up Fang Yan. Ruthlessly beat him up. But why was it so difficult? Ever since he was young, big young Master Jiang, who was used to having everything he wanted and everything he wanted, had never been so humiliated. After getting to know Fang Yan, he finally understood the true meaning of the phrase life is hard. Bastard. A deep voice suddenly rang out from outside the private room. Everyone looked out and saw a middle-aged man in a black suit standing behind the crowd with a stern face. He was surrounded by a large group of assistants and bodyguards, looking extraordinary. Dad! Jiang Zhulu shouted in surprise. Uncle Jiang! Lu Shu let go of Jiang Zhulio's shoulder and took the initiative to greet Qiang Longtan. The crowd dispersed, and Qiang Longtan walked over with large strides. This was Qiang Longtan? This was the murderer who might have killed Lu Chaoga's parents? Fang Yan looked him up and down seriously. He looked at his gentle yet sharp eyes, his thick and seemingly stiff eyebrows, his well-maintained skin that shone with a bright luster, and his protruding forehead and thick lips. This was a very charming man. Both his looks and temperament were top-notch. Moreover, he gave off a sense of justice that was dignified without being angry, causing people to naturally feel fear when they saw him. This kind of man was both an official and a wealthy man. He made money from doing business, entered an official career, and got promoted. He would never live a mediocre life. Was he really the kind of man that Lu Chaoga had guessed? Qiang Longtan ignored Jiang Zhulio's shouts and Lu Shu's greetings. He walked straight to Lu Chaoga, squatted down and asked with concern, "How are your injuries?" He had to admit that this was a very considerate and gentle father. If he hadn't heard Lu Chaoga's story just now, and if it wasn't for his preconceived feelings, he would have been conquered by Qiang Longtan's attitude towards Lu Chaoga. No wonder Lu Chaoga couldn't breathe in that kind of family. Having a father like this was really stressful. "I'm fine," Lu Chaoga said calmly. She had lived in that family for too many years, and was already immune to such care. "Who did it?" Qiang Longtan asked. Lu Chaoga looked into Qiang Longtan's eyes and said, "I don't know. It's fine." Qiang Longtan patted the back of Lu Chaoga's hand gently. "I'll look into it. I'll find out who it is, no matter who it is." Qiang Longtan got up abruptly and looked at Fang Yan and the agitated Jiang Zhulu. "What's going on?" The middle-aged officer came over and explained the situation to Qiang Longtan in a low voice. Qiang Longtan frowned and said, "Jiang Zhulu is Chaoga's younger brother. He's not a stranger, and there's no way he's up to no good." Qiang Longtan's words blocked the loophole of Jiang Zhulio's false alarm. "Understood," the middle-aged officer said. Qiang Longtan pointed at Fang Yan, then looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, "He's your friend?" "Yes," Lu Chaoga said. "Chaoga's friend is also Jiang Zhulio's friend. There's no need to go to the police station to solve a small conflict between friends. Just let it go," Qiang Longtan said. He turned to look at Fang Yan and said, "The dead should be respected. Let's keep quiet, okay?" Fang Yan was speechless. That was a very good question. If he didn't agree, he would be disrespecting the dead, looking for trouble, and being ungrateful. It's so hard to be a human being, Fang Yan thought to himself. You want to calm things down, but have you considered how I, the murderer, feel? No problem. It's great that we can make it a small matter. The middle-aged officer was overjoyed. Now that the injured party didn't want to pursue the matter, he naturally had peace. Lu Chaoga is my daughter. My daughter was assassinated in this restaurant. You must help me find the murderer, Qiang Longtan said to the middle-aged officer this time. I don't want to wait too long. We'll try our best. We won't let Mr. Jiang down. The middle-aged officer straightened his back and said, although the person standing in front of him wasn't his immediate superior, he still felt heavy pressure. I believe you, Qiang Longtan said. The middle-aged officer wanted to laugh, but he couldn't. Qiang Longtan walked to Lu Chaoga and said in a low voice, Let's go. Let's go home. Since Qiang Longtan came to the scene, it had become his word. Everything was arranged in an orderly manner, and almost no one could raise any objections. Everyone had to agree with him. Everyone had to follow his rhythm. This was the charm of a man, the charm of having everything under control. Fang Yan suddenly felt very angry. You're a bad person, you hypocrite. Why should we listen to your arrangements? Why should we let you take the lead? Qiang Longtan was like a peerless martial arts master. As soon as you wanted to punch, the other party had already figured out your fist. As soon as you wanted to kick, he had already blocked your attack. Your actions were transparent in front of him. You were so weak and insignificant compared to him. He didn't like the feeling of being completely controlled. I have to break his control. I have to disrupt his rhythm. A voice in his heart shouted. She won't go back. Fang Yan said aloud. Qiang Longtan turned to look at Fang Yan and asked in a calm voice. Why? I haven't thought about it yet. Fang Yan said. She can't go back with you anyway. Chapter 155. Qiang Longtan narrowed his eyes at Fang Yan for a while and said, You're an interesting young man. I won't change my mind even if you compliment me, Fang Yan said with a smirk. Do I look like the kind of man who can be bought over with a few flattering words? But I don't get it. Chaoga is my daughter, and she's just been attacked. What's wrong with me taking her home to rest and letting my family take care of her? Jiang Longtan voiced his reasonable doubts. What's wrong with that? He was Lu Chaoga's legal guardian. Although Lu Chaoga was an adult now, she was still registered in the national file system. If he wanted to take Lu Chaoga home as her foster father, everyone would support his decision. She's your daughter and my girlfriend. She's half of my spine, the air and sunshine of my life. Just now, right under my nose, an off-road vehicle rushed over and almost took her away from me. Can you understand how I feel right now? Can you understand how I feel when I've lost her and found her again? I don't want to be apart from her for even a second. I want to keep an eye on her and make sure she's fine. Otherwise, I'll have nightmares at night. Lu Chaoga darted a strange look at Fang Yan and thought that he was the only one who could say something like that. Qiang Longtan said after some hesitation, That's a very convincing reason. Thank you for your consideration. But I'm still taking Chaoga with me, said Qiang Longtan. At a time like this, what she needs most is her parents' company, not a bastard who's trying to take advantage of her. Chaoga, shall we go back? Lu Chaoga shook her head and said in a hoarse voice, I'm going back to school. This was the first time she had turned down Qiang Longtan's arrangement. She had never done something like this before. Qiang Longtan was stunned. He didn't expect Lu Chaoga to stand on Fang Yan's side so firmly. It's quieter there, Lu Chaoga explained. I understand. Qiang Longtan nodded with difficulty. Take care of yourself. Dad, how can you let him take Chaoga away? Jiang Zhulu shouted. This is a despicable and shameless person. When we came in just now he was… Shut up. Qiang Longtan snapped, Go back. Qiang Longtan shifted his gaze to Lu Chaoga again and said, Shall we talk? Although I know that the timing isn't right, and the environment isn't right, there are some words that I don't want to let pass the night. Sure, Lu Chaoga said. The unrelated people all left, and the private room was cleared. Fang Yan took off his coat and draped it over Lu Chaoga's shoulders before he left as well. Qiang Longtan only wanted to talk to Lu Chaoga. Are you thirsty? Qiang Longtan asked. He went to the fridge in the corner of the private room and took out a bottle of cold water. Holding it in his hand, he said, The water's too cold. Drink it later. Lu Chaoga didn't say a word. She only gripped Fang Yan's coat tightly, hoping to get some warmth. Qiang Longtan found the remote control for the air conditioner and turned it on. The room quickly warmed up as the ambience was released. Only then did Qiang Longtan sit down across from Lu Chaoga. Looking into Lu Chaoga's eyes, he said honestly, I know. You blame me and you hate me. The surprise in Lu Chaoga's eyes flashed away, and she returned to calmness in an instant. This opening was too direct, and she was caught unprepared. You've always suspected me. You suspect that your parents' death is closely related to me. You don't have to deny it. I know what you're thinking from the strange and wary look in your eyes. A long time ago, I wanted to find an opportunity for us father and daughter to sit together and have a good chat. I'll tell you my thoughts to clear up your misunderstanding of me. But I'm usually too busy with work and so is yours. We don't have much time to eat together. I wanted to find a time to talk alone, but it's been delayed until now. Qiang Longtan shook his head and smiled bitterly, saying, "As a father, I've failed in my duty. I've let down your parents' trust. Actually, it's been so many years. Some things can't necessarily be explained clearly. What happened to your parents still pains me to this day. They were my best friends and talented business partners. Chowga, you don't know business, so you don't understand how great their departure was for me and Longta Group. We haven't been able to recover to this day." "Yes, we haven't been able to recover to this day. We could have done better. We should have been number one in all of Huaxia. But we used to be the world's leading biotechnology company, and now we're being surpassed by others. Can you understand how I felt back then? It wasn't just my hard work, it was your parents as well. We drank and talked so many times, and we were both filled with hope for the future. We said that we wanted to do our best, to be the best number one in the world. But because of their departure, I couldn't accomplish the goal I set on my own. They're very important to me, and just like you, I don't want to be separated from them. I didn't want to talk about it in front of you, because I thought it would be too cruel for you. You're just an innocent girl, and you shouldn't have to bear all that. You shouldn't have to bear all that pain. I hope that you can forget it, just remember it, but not be sad. I hope that you can become a member of the Jiang family. We'll do everything that parents should do for you. We'll give you everything that your parents can give you. I hope that we can take care of you and protect you for them. I hope that everyone can live a peaceful and happy life. Even if it's a little incomplete, everyone will still be happy. I hope that I can do that for you." Qiang Longtan unscrewed the cap of a bottle of warm water and handed it to Lu Chaoga. "Why would I hurt them? If it's for the sake of profit, they can stay alive and help me lead the research team. Our Longta Group can become number one in Huaxia and number one in the world. Isn't that more beneficial to me?" Lu Chaoga opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. He had this kind of ability. He could always see through your thoughts and accurately pinpoint your acupuncture points, making it impossible for you to have any thoughts of resistance. "You're one with us. You're a member of the Jiang family, and also a member of our Longta Group. You're my daughter Jiang Zhuliu's sister. I know that you don't want to marry him. If you don't want to, then don't. It's been so many years, when have I ever forced you? Have I ever said anything harsh to you?" "No," Lu Chaoga said. Ren Jin often said that they should be together, but Qiang Longtan had always been against it. "Although you've never been to the company, you still hold 49% of Longta Group's shares. This is the distribution plan that your father and I discussed when we founded the company. Your parents are gone, so you're their only legal heir. So these 49% shares will automatically be transferred to your name. I've tried to persuade you many times. When you were in school, I told you to study business management, so that you could take on more responsibilities in the company. After you graduated, I also persuaded you to work at Longta Group. You could be my assistant for the time being, and I'd teach you everything I know about management. What I said is still valid. Whenever you want to return to Lantu, you can do so. I told you it's mine, and it's yours as well. Even Jiang Zhulu isn't as influential as you are in Longtu. I know there will be rumors, but they're just rumors. I've always ignored them because we're a family. Because we're a family. If we try to explain such a strange thing seriously, it'll pull the distance between us even further." "Chaoga." Qiang Longtan looked at Lu Chaoga lovingly and said helplessly, "I know you're not happy in the Jiang family, and I know you're under a lot of pressure. To be honest, I'm not happy either, and I'm under a lot of pressure. I've tried my best to be good to you, but I've found that it doesn't make us closer. Instead, it's like a double-edged sword that cuts you and makes you feel like you can't breathe. It also cuts me and makes me feel like all my efforts are in vain." Qiang Longtan looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, "Chaoga, what do you think I should do? Tell me, what should I do?" Jiang Longtu was usually strict, powerful, wise, controlling, and tolerant. It was as if there was no problem in the world that he couldn't solve, and he wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. At this moment, Qiang Longtan was anxious and exhausted, which was something he had never shown before. Lu Chaoga's mind was in a mess. What was the truth? What was the cause of her parents' death? Was it really because they met some local scum on a holiday and were killed by them? Where was her aunt? Could it be that her suspicion of the Jiang family and her hatred for King Longtan were all wrong? That they weren't the murderers she thought they were? Was that their concern for her genuine? And all those years of care were also genuine? Countless questions swirled in her mind, and she couldn't find an answer to them. King Longtan smiled and said, "You're suspicious because we haven't done a good enough job. Time will tell a person's heart. Don't be in a hurry to make a decision." "Alright, I think that guy outside must be getting impatient. He doesn't look bad. He has the guts to resist my arrangements, which is much better than Jiang Zhulu. If he treats you badly, tell me and I'll make him suffer too." Chapter 156. You shouldn't have come. Jiang Zhulu sat in the back seat and said calmly, "Why?" King Longtan had his eyes closed, and his voice wasn't very clear, as if he was in a half-asleep state. "Lu Chaoga suspects us. She has always thought that the Jiang family is the culprit behind her parents' death. She was attacked, and you immediately ran over. What would she think? What would others think?" Jiang Zhulu raised his doubts. "Oh, then tell me, what would she think? What would others think?" "Lu Chaoga thinks that you rushed over in a hurry to distance yourself from this matter, which is a blatant lie. The others probably have the same thoughts as Lu Chaoga." Jiang Zhulu analyzed. "Lu Chaoga is my favorite daughter. She was in such a big accident, and I received one call after another. If I didn't rush over, what would she think? What would others think?" King Longtan asked. This sudden incident had indeed pushed King Longtan into a dilemma. Just as Jiang Zhulu suspected, as soon as something happened to Lu Xiaoga, he hurriedly ran over. It was as if he wanted to prove that he was innocent, and that he wasn't the one who did it. However, if he didn't come, Lu Xiaoga and the others would have other thoughts. His most beloved daughter had been in such a car accident, and so many people had called to inform him of the situation. But King Longtan didn't care. What was he running away from? Jiang Zhulu thought about it and said in annoyance, "So the father and son of the Jiang family can't be good people? Whether we did it or not, we can't get rid of the suspicion." "Yes," King Longtan said. "That's too much. Who bullied you?" The difference between a good chef and an ordinary chef is that they can control the degree of cooking, the degree of heat, and the degree of seasoning. If a big fire is too bad, a small fire will make it better. If it's too tasteless, it's too salty and hard to swallow. King Longtan said. Jiang Zhulu looked into his father's eyes and asked, "What do you want to say?" "I've acted." Jiang Zhulu's expression instantly became stiff. Lu Chaoga's clothes had been soaked by the rain, and her whole body was in pain. It was difficult for her to even walk normally, under the arrangement of the middle-aged police officer. The two of them made separate statements, and then they were released to rest. Fang Yin wanted to send Lu Chaoga to the hospital, but Lu Chaoga refused. She just wanted to go back, take a bath, change into clean clothes, and have a good sleep. She just wanted to go back, take a bath, changed, and have a good sleep. The school gave this house to Lu Chaoga and Lu Zhuge hat. The school gave this house to Lu Chaoga, but Lu Chaoga had never lived in it. She didn't want to waste the space, so she planted a lot of flowers and plants in the yard. Sometimes when she was really bored, she would come here quietly and cut a pot of flowers or cut a few pieces of grass to give her body and mind a place to relax and rest. Later Fang Yin appeared. Because of his innovation, he offended Li Mingxiang and the others, so he didn't even get a single room in the school. In order to buy people's hearts, Lu Chaoga offered to lend him the house temporarily. After Fang Yin moved in, Lu Chaoga didn't come here easily to avoid arousing suspicion. Soon, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan also moved in. Fang Yin parked the car in the parking lot, then quickly walked over to open the door of the back compartment. Lu Chaoga sat in the seat and couldn't move. Several times, she wanted to stretch her legs, but she twisted her ankle and waist. She was in so much pain that she gasped. "I'll carry you," Fang Yin said. "No need." Lu Chaoga refused. Although it was late at night, there would still be teachers and students in this area. If Fang Yin carried her back and met familiar teachers or students, they wouldn't be able to clear their names, even if they jumped into the Yellow River. "Do you have any other choice?" As Fang Yen spoke, one of his hands had already reached under her calf, and the other hand was holding her waist. With a little force, he lifted Lu Chaoga's voluptuous body. I'm doing this for your own good. Fang Yen closed the car door with his foot, then pressed the lock button on the key, and walked quickly to the small courtyard where they lived. Whatever he said would happen, and what he feared would happen. Fang Yen and Lu Chaoga were afraid of meeting any acquaintances. They didn't expect to meet Li Mingqiang, who was also coming out of the parking lot, when they just got out of the parking lot. Lu Chaoga buried her face in Fang Yen's chest, pretending that no one could recognize her. Fang Yen couldn't avoid it, so he could only smile at Li Mingqiang awkwardly. Li Mingqiang was stunned for a moment. Then he walked quickly to Fang Yen and asked, "Mr. Fang, did you just come back from outside? What's wrong with Principal Lu? Are you okay?" Lu Chaoga really wanted to die this time. Fang Yen also felt that this old guy didn't know how to speak. At this time, couldn't you pretend that you didn't recognize who this woman was? Did you have to expose him in public? Principal Lu's leg was injured. He can't walk. Fang Yen explained. Injured? Is it serious? Do you want to send him to the hospital? Li Mingqiang asked with a worried face, as if his important family was injured. Fang Yen looked at him with doubt, and immediately understood his mind. Fang Yen was able to negotiate with Zheng Tianqing successfully, thanks to the video provided to him by Li Mingqiang's son, Li Yang. At that time, Li Yang recorded the video just to please Zheng Guodong, but he didn't expect to be interrupted by Zhu Jian, who suddenly rushed in by mistake. At that time, the scene was too chaotic, and Li Yang forgot about the video. Later, when the incident broke out, and Zhu Jian was wronged and left, Li Yang didn't dare to take out the video. For some reason, he didn't destroy the video. Later, on the top of Xinxia Mountain, Zheng Guodong, Li Yang and Chen Tao were killed, and Fang Yen went down with a rattan rope to rescue them one by one. From that time on, Li Yang and Chen Tao's attitude towards Fang Yen changed, but because of this, there was a gap between them and Zheng Guodong. The distance between the three people was getting farther and farther. After Fang Yen found Li Yang and Chen Tao, he did some ideological education work, and Li Yang finally gave the video to Fang Yen. At that time he gave Fang Yen a 500G hard disk. When Fang Yen took it, he was shocked, thinking that Zheng Guodong was so heartless that there was so much evidence in the hands of Li Yang. Later, when he opened it, he found that it was just a video of a few minutes. Out of the same mentality, he walked into Zheng Tianqing's office with the 500G hard disk. When Zheng Tianqing took the hard disk, his heart was probably beating very fast, right? Although Fang Yen didn't admit it, it wasn't difficult for Zheng Tianqing and Zheng Guodong to guess the source of the video. Li Mingqiang lost Zheng Tianqing's trust, and his position as the head of teaching was in jeopardy. Zhu Jian, who had been expelled from the school, returned in a high-profile manner and became his assistant. This arrangement made him even more worried. Therefore, it was a very urgent matter to find another life-saving thigh to hug. However, in the whole of Rosefinch Secondary, did he have any other choice? Now it was not strange that he treated Fang Yen and Lu Chaoga like this. It's not serious. I just need to apply some medicine, Fang Yen said. Lu Chaoga didn't say anything. Since she didn't say anything from the beginning, she might as well keep silent. If she spoke at this time, it would be easier to fall into an awkward situation. Yes. Hurry up and apply the medicine. Li Mingqiang said. I have some golden chrysalis muscle nourishing powder at home. It is said that it was personally made by the Dr. King Qin Luo, using wild golden chrysalis. I will go back and get it. You help Principal Lu apply it. With Principal Lu's character and appearance, it would be a pity if there was a scar on his leg. This is a big deal, and it can't be delayed. Fang Yen could not reject the other party's good intentions. Moreover, if Li Mingqiang could stand on Lu Chaoga's side from now on, it would also give Lu Chaoga a big help in Rosefinch. Besides, Fang Yen did Li Yang a favor. Thank you, Director Li, Fang Yen said with a smile. We are all colleagues, no need to be polite. Li Mingqiang waved his hand and said, You send Principal Lu back to rest. I will go back and get the medicine. I will send the medicine to you later. After Li Mingqiang finished, he trotted to the front. Fang Yin shook his head gently. Everyone's life was not easy. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan had already had dinner, and were doing the routine standing training in the yard. Seeing Fang Yin coming in with a woman in his arms, both of them were surprised. They hadn't seen each other for a while, and junior martial uncle's behavior was so open. Fang Yingying hurriedly greeted him and said, "Junior martial uncle, do you need my help?" "Yes," Fang Yin said. With Fang Yan's affirmative answer, Fang Yingying hurriedly ran over to help Fang Yin carry Lu Chaoga. Fang Yin turned around with Lu Chaoga's body in his arms, avoided Fang Yingying's kindness and said, "Help me close the door." Ah! Fang Yingying was stunned for a moment. Just this. He was stunned for a moment, and hurriedly ran over to close the courtyard door. Fang Yin came to the living room with Lu Chaoga in his arms. Looking at her wet clothes, he said, "Take a bath and change your clothes first. When Director Li comes, I will help you apply the medicine. Since he has the golden chrysalis muscle nourishing powder, we shouldn't refuse his kindness." After saying this, he realized that the real problem had appeared. Lu Chaoga couldn't take a bath, and there was no change of clothes. Chapter 157. Lu Chaoga's ankles and waist were injured, and it was very difficult for her to walk. How could she bathe in the bathroom standing up? Although this house was designed as a villa, the designer didn't equip every bathroom with a bathtub. As for changing clothes, it was even more lacking. Lu Chaoga hadn't lived here before. Fang Yin, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohan were all men. They were willing to contribute their own clothes, but Lu Chaoga had to be willing to wear them first. Fang Yin looked embarrassed. He thought that he should have let her go back with Qiang Long Tan. However, since he snatched her today, he had to be responsible for her. Fang Yin looked at Lu Chaoga and said, "Bathing is not a problem. I can help you. But there are no suitable clothes for you at home." "Well, I will ask Fang Yingying to go out and buy them for you. What size clothes do you wear? Do you need to buy underwear and panties?" Yes. Tell me the number so I can buy suitable clothes." Fang Yingying was very happy. After coming out, not only could he see beautiful women, but he could also buy underwear and panties for beautiful women. It was still more promising to follow junior martial uncle. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yin strangely, but she didn't answer his question. "You look at me like this. Do you not want to answer, or are you embarrassed to answer?" Fang Yin thought for a while and said, "It seems that you are embarrassed to answer. It doesn't matter. We have a lot of contact. I also have some superficial understanding of your figure. I will go out and buy clothes for you later. It shouldn't be too far off." Lu Chaoga still didn't speak. She didn't know what to say. Such a private topic of women made her very embarrassed. On the other hand, even if she felt that this topic was weird, she couldn't refuse it completely. She really needed a clean set of clothes to change out of her drenched, torn clothes. Li Mingqiang came very quickly. Not only did he bring along the golden chrysalis muscle nourishing powder made by the physician king, he also brought along 2 old ginsengs. It was said that it would take 100 days for the tendons and bones to recover. Since Principal Lu was injured, he needed to eat something nutritious to nourish his body. Not only did Principal Lu need to nourish his body, but Fang Yin also felt that he should nourish his brain. Recently, he had been doing too much brain work. He felt that his IQ was not enough. Therefore, he accepted Li Mingqiang's kindness very quickly. This made Li Mingqiang worry that Fang Yin would refuse the gift, so the words he had specially thought of were completely useless. You wouldn't know how to deal with a man who was too forthright. Fang Yin took the ointment box, opened the cap and sniffed it. Inside was a brown herbal ointment with a strange animal scent. It looked really good. The smell is very pure. The aroma of the golden chrysalis assails my nose. It is much stronger compared to the ones sold in the market, Fang Yin said with a smile. It should be made by the physician king himself. Even if it's not, this golden chrysalis is the real deal. Li Mingqiang, who usually gave the impression of being serious and inflexible, had a smile on his face. He praised, "Mr. Fang, you have good eyesight. This thing was given by a friend with a very high status. It's rare to see it outside. After confirming the authenticity of the ointment, Fang Yen squatted down and lifted Lu Chaoga's calf and placed it on his knee. He gently stroked it with his fingers and asked, "Does it hurt here?" "No. Here." "No. Here. It's very painful." Fang Yen carefully massaged the part where Lu Chaoga was in pain. After she gradually adapted to this level of contact, he suddenly lifted her heel up. Kacha! A crisp sound was heard. The dislocated part of Lu Chaoga's ankle was fixed by Fang Yen. "Ah!" Lu Chaoga screamed. She frowned in pain and was sweating profusely. "It's fixed," Fang Yen said. "Although I don't have the skill of the physician king, it's not difficult for me to fix a bone." He took a large ball of ointment from the ointment box and put it in his palm. Then he covered the injured part of Lu Chaoga's foot with it and gently massaged it again. He didn't stop until her skin turned red and the ointment was completely absorbed. Fang Yen looked at the wounds on Lu Chaoga's leg and other parts of her body and said, "Take a bath first. I'll apply the ointment on your body after the bath. After the ointment, you can have a good rest." Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Okay." Li Mingqiang was shocked when he heard that Fang Yen was going to apply the ointment on Lu Chaoga's body. He had heard that there was an affair between Fang Yen and Lu Chaoga before, but he didn't believe it at all. The senior management of the school knew something about Lu Chaoga's background, with the great master of the Jiang family standing behind him, who dared to compete with him for a woman. But now he had to believe it. Had the relationship between the two developed to such an intimate level? He quickly reflected in his heart. He shouldn't have offended Fang Yen too much, right? Li Mingqiang felt that he couldn't stay any longer. Wouldn't he be disturbing others who were busy with their business if he stayed? He hurriedly said goodbye to Lu Chaoga and Fang Yen and said, "Principal Lu, take a good rest and recuperate. Put aside your work first. If there's anything I can do for you, don't be polite to me." This was a show of loyalty, so Lu Xiaoga had no choice but to respond. Whether it was to accept or reject, she had to show him her attitude. Lu Chaoga looked at Li Mingqiang and nodded. "Thank you, Mingqiang. I still need your support in my work in the future." Li Mingqiang's eyes lit up. He looked 10 years younger all of a sudden. He said excitedly, "Principal Lu, this is what I should do." His position was saved. From today onwards, he was Lu Chaoga's man. After Li Mingqiang left, Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yen and asked, "Do you think he can be used?" "He couldn't before, but he can now," Fang Yen said. "He used to be Zheng Tiancheng's man. With such a thick thigh to cling to, he naturally wouldn't put us in his eyes. But now the person who wants to kick him away the most is Zheng Tiancheng. So, he can only cling to your thigh." "Cling to your thigh," Lu Chaoga said. To be able to successfully negotiate with Zheng Tiancheng and send his son to the juvenile detention center, it either proves that you have a background, or you have something on Zheng Tiancheng. What reason does he have not to stand on your side? "He is our thigh," Fang Yen said with a smile. "Rest for a while. I'll go buy clothes for you. After buying clothes, I'll help you bathe. Or you can ask Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan to help. I'll wait for you to come back," Lu Chaoga said while gritting her teeth. She secretly regretted it. Why did she agree to come back with this scoundrel? Fang Yen smiled and said goodbye to Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. He asked the two brothers to take care of Lu Chaoga, and then went out to do some shopping. Fang Yingying ran to Lu Chaoga and said, "Principal Lu, do you want some water?" "Thank you," Lu Chaoga said. "Thank you. Do you want to drink it or not?" Fang Yingying asked. Lu Chaoga felt depressed and wanted to vomit blood. She heard these two guys called Fang Yen and Junior Martial Uncle. It seemed that they were from the same sect. What was the saying again? If you're not a family, you don't enter the same door. Their character was so despicable. Seeing that Lu Chaoga didn't speak, Fang Yingying urged, "Principal Lu, you have to give a definite answer. Do you want to drink it or not?" "Yes," Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yingying turned around and shouted, "Hero, pour water." So, the dull Fang Haohan really ran to pour water. The chubby Fang Yingying still stood in front of Lu Chaoga and refused to leave. He asked innocently, "Principal Lu, are you the leader of Junior Martial Uncle?" "We're friends too. Junior Martial Uncle's friend. That's our little martial aunt," Fang Yingying said happily. "Little martial aunt, can you find us a job?" You see, Hero and I are so big. It's not a good idea to stay at home all day, right? Lu Chaoga collected her thoughts and looked at Fang Yingying seriously. She asked, "What do you want to do?" "I can't teach Chinese, mathematics, and English." Fang Yingying thought about it and said, "How about I teach physical education with Fang Haohen? We're good at it." "Do you have a teacher's certificate?" Lu Chaoga asked. Fang Yingying shook his head and said, "No." "Do you have a bachelor's degree?" "None." "I can't help you," Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yingying's face was full of regret. He said, "You see, it's not that I don't want to find a job, but the employment situation is too serious. You can't despise us for following junior marshal uncle to eat and drink." "Why should I despise you?" Lu Chaoga asked curiously. Fang Yingying looked at Lu Chaoga as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "You were carried back by junior marshal uncle. Aren't you our little marshal sister-in-law? If you become our little marshal sister-in-law, won't you despise junior marshal uncle for taking care of us who can't rely on ourselves? Many women will despise us." "I never thought of despising you. I never thought of becoming your marshal sister-in-law," Lu Chaoga said. "Are I really close to Fang Yin to this extent? Everyone who sees them thinks they should be a couple?" Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen looked at each other, and they both grinned. Fang Yingying said, "I'm relieved to hear that. Actually, junior marshal uncle is a good person, but I don't think he's worthy of you. He has no sense of responsibility and likes to avoid some things." Fang Haohen followed up. Chapter 158. When Fang Yin came back with big and small bags of shopping, he felt that Lu Chaoga looked at him with a strange look. Fang Yin thought that Lu Chaoga was embarrassed to let a man buy this kind of underwear for her. He said with a smile, "It doesn't matter. You will get used to it in the future." Fang Yin thought about it and felt that there was something wrong with what he had said. Get used to it in the future. Was she used to letting men buy underwear? Or was she used to letting herself buy underwear and underwear? It was estimated that Lu Chaoga didn't like either. However, he didn't dare to dwell on this problem. He said, "Come, let me help you to take a bath first." Lu Chaoga sat still and asked calmly, "How do I wash?" She couldn't let Fang Yin help her take a bath, but if Fang Yin didn't help her, she couldn't take a bath. This was really a very complicated and headache-inducing problem. "I will move a chair in. I will help you adjust the water temperature first. You should be able to sit on the chair and wash slowly, right?" After experiencing so many things tonight, Fang Yin didn't have the mood to joke, so he reported his ideas truthfully. "Okay." Lu Chaoga was very satisfied with this solution and nodded. Fang Yin first put a wooden chair under the shower head in the bathroom, then carried Lu Chaoga to the chair in the bathroom, and asked, "Is this okay?" "Yes." Lu Chaoga looked at the layout of the bathroom and tried not to look at Fang Yan's eyes. "Then I will go out first." "Okay. Call me if you need anything," said Fang Yan. When Fang Yan came out, Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were looking in the direction of the bathroom. "What are you two doing?" Fang Yan whispered to avoid being heard by Lu Chaoga, who was taking a bath inside. Otherwise, she would have thought that someone was peeping outside. Fang Yingying jogged over and said with a smile, "Junior marshal uncle, I have a very important question to discuss with you." "What problem?" Fang Yin asked. "How are you going to sleep tonight?" Fang Yingying asked. "How do I sleep? Whoever sleeps with whom? Who's sleeping with who?" Fang Yingying explained even more clearly. Fang Yin stared at Fang Yingying and said, "What do you mean?" Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen looked at each other. Fang Haohen continued to pretend to be a corpse in silence. Fang Yingying had no choice but to say, "Junior marshal uncle, we only have 2 rooms with 2 beds. And then, I'll share a room with Fang Yingying. Then, you and Principal Lu. Will you also sleep in the same room? How is that possible?" Fang Yin said angrily, "Principal Lu and I are just colleagues. It can also be a simple relationship of sleeping in the same bed." "Pa!" Fang Yin slapped Fang Yingying's head and said angrily, "Fang Yingying, how can you have such an idea? Why are your thoughts so wretched? The men of our Fang family practice martial arts and are indomitable. They are the real heroes who protect the country. I didn't say that I can't be wretched, Fang Yingying said with a sad face while holding his head. Besides, this problem is urgent. We must solve it as soon as possible. Otherwise, when Principal Lu comes out, where will we put her? There is another solution. You sleep in a room alone. Principal Lu will sleep with us. You will definitely not agree. Fang Yin stared at Fang Yingying and sneered. Fang Yingying had a bad premonition and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, what do you want to do? Fang Yingying, when you and Fang Haohan first came, didn't you say that you only need a place to stay? I can satisfy you of that. Not only can I let you stay, but I can also let you sleep. I don't care if you sleep in the living room or on the roof. Anyway, you have to give up your room. Fang Yin said very strongly. Junior Marshal Uncle, you know that Fang Haohan, and I don't like to take a bath. Our room smells. It's not suitable for you or Principal Lu to sleep in. Fang Yingying wanted to save the situation. It doesn't matter. Principal Lu will sleep in my room, and I will sleep in your room. My nose is stuffed recently, so I probably can't smell anything. If it doesn't work, I can put 2 moongrass pills into my nostrils to purify the air. Junior Marshal Uncle, it's decided, Fang Yin said. After listening to Fang Yan's decision, Fang Haohan was very dissatisfied with Fang Yingying. He said in a low voice, Who asked you to speak ill of Junior Marshal Uncle behind his back? Now you are getting what you deserve. Fang Yan's eyes were cold and he said angrily, Fang Yingying, what did you say about me? Fang Haohan, shut up. Fang Yingying felt that he was going crazy. Don't be afraid of a godlike opponent, but be afraid of a pig-like teammate. Fang Haohan, you idiot, no matter how good your knife skills are, you can't just wave the knife and stab randomly. Don't you know that people will die? After stopping Fang Haohan from speaking casually, Fang Yingying looked at Fang Yin with a flattering face and said, Junior Marshal Uncle, how dare I speak ill of you behind your back? Just now when you went out to buy things, Fang Haohan, and I casually chatted with Principal Lu. I said that although Principal Lu is beautiful, has a very elegant temperament, a good character, is talented and capable, and knows how to be filial to her parents. But if she wants to be with you, she always feels that something is missing. What is missing? Fang Yin asked. Domineering. Fang Yingying said. Miss Ye's domineering attitude that if you are not convinced, I will beat you until you are convinced. Fang Yingying. Fang Yin stared at Fang Yingying fiercely and said, That kind of despicable, shameless, barbaric, and violent behavior can be considered domineering? Fang Yingying looked at Fang Yin timidly, and did not dare to speak. I asked you a question, Fang Yin said angrily. Tell me, is her behavior considered domineering? It is quite domineering. Fang Yingying braced himself and said, Although I have not fought with Miss Yi, it makes my blood boil just watching from the side. Junior Marshal Uncle is so powerful, but he was beaten away by her. Fang Haohan stabbed again. Everyone says that she is the #1 master in Jianghu. Fang Yan's face turned white, then red, then purple, and finally returned to its natural color. Fang Yin looked at Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan expressionlessly and said, I haven't checked your homework for a long time. Tonight, each of you will practice the plum blossom steps 50 times, and you are not allowed to sleep until you finish. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's expressions were aghast. Fang Yingying said hurriedly, Junior Marshal Uncle, it will be dawn by the time you finish the plum blossom steps 50 times. If that's the case, Fang Yin sneered. Doesn't it solve the problem of who sleeps who? Fang Yin. Lu Chaoga called Fang Yan's name in the bathroom. I'm coming, Fang Yin replied. They couldn't afford to set up a morning hall, or buy a tomb. There was only an incense table, and a black and white photo for people to worship at the door of the rented house. The sparse number of guests came, offered an incense stick, and left after saying a few words of comfort without any warmth. No one was willing to stay for too long. He was just a small security guard. Who would really take him seriously? He was alive and unknown. Even if he died, he couldn't make any waves. This was the fate of most people in the world. Because Lu Jinju was a migrant worker in Huaqing, he had no relatives here. A middle-aged woman cried on the bed, her voice sad and heart-wrenching. A white-haired old woman with swollen eyes was leaning against the corner of the wall. She could no longer make any sound. She was holding a little boy, who looked like he had just turned 1 month old, tightly in her arms. The little boy was also affected by the surrounding atmosphere. He opened his mouth and screamed. Lu Jinju brought his wife to Huaqing to work to earn money. Lu Jinju's wife got pregnant and gave birth. Lu Jinju's mother came to help take care of the child. Like countless ordinary families, they lived ordinary lives. They were poor and bitter, but when the child cried, laughed, and screamed, it was all their happiness. Lu Jinju died, leaving behind a house full of orphans and widows. The sky was falling. A fat woman wearing a checkered shirt stood at the door and cursed. She shouted with a sharp voice, "You bunch of country bumpkins! What does the death of your family have to do with me? If they're dead, then they're dead. Throw them far away and bury them. What right do you have to set up a mourning hall in my house? You unlucky people, hurry up and move out. Scram as far as you can. I won't refund your deposit. You messed up my house like this. If people find out, how can I rent out my house? Move out immediately. You have to move. If you don't move, I'll get someone to move it for you. Hurry up and move all those broken things away. I feel bad just by looking at them." A middle-aged man wearing a white shirt stood beside the woman. He was comforting her softly, but the woman in the checkered shirt ignored him. She continued to curse loudly. Her sharp and harsh voice told Lu Jinju's wife and mother to move out quickly. Whoosh! A handful of money suddenly appeared in front of the woman. "If they can't shut you up, I'll stuff them into your anus." A cold voice rang in the woman's ears. Chapter 159. The woman in the checkered shirt opened her mouth wide in surprise. She looked at the handsome man in the suit and leather shoes in front of her in disbelief. Although the content of his words is very rude, but the way he gives money is really handsome. The woman thought in her heart. This man was simply her idol, Prince Charming. Of course, probably all women like this kind of idol, Prince Charming, right? Why do you want to give me money? The woman asked vigilantly. She liked money, but she knew that not all money could be taken away casually. Moreover, from the way these men dressed, she could tell that they were not so easy to provoke. I said, "I want you to shut up immediately." The man said coldly, "After taking the money, immediately get out of here, as far as you can. Don't let me see you again." Lu Shu, what is there to say to this kind of woman? Jiang Zhulu came over, glanced at the middle-aged woman with disdain, and said, "Quickly send her away." "Aren't I doing this?" Lu Shu said. When Jiang Zhulu and Lu Shu were responsible for clearing the place, Qiang Longtan, who was surrounded by his secretary and bodyguards, went straight into the rented house. He glanced at the environment of the house. The living room, bedroom, and kitchen were all connected together, piled up in this small single room that was less than 30 square meters. The bed sheet was worn, and the pillow revealed the black cotton inside. In the corner there was a rolled-up straw mat. It should be someone who wanted to sleep on the floor at night. On the table, there was a half plate of cold cucumber, and a small plate of stir-fried vegetables with shredded pork. Those were the leftovers that they were not willing to throw away. Lu Jinju worked in the most high-end restaurant in the city, but the place he lived was so narrow and shabby. The appearance of Qiang Longtan and the others finally attracted the attention of the two women in the room. They looked at the extraordinary Qiang Longtan in the middle of the crowd with astonishment, and wondered when Lu Jinju knew such a big shot. Could it be that he was Lu Jinju's friend? They knew that it was impossible. Lu Jinju was just a small security guard. How could he be qualified to be friends with such a person? Qiang Longtan stood at the door and bowed deeply to the two women. Then, he went to the old man's side and sat down, holding the old man's old and withered hand, and said, "Old man, please restrain your grief. Take care of yourself in any case." The old man looked at Qiang Longtan and asked, "Who are you?" "I am Lu's friend." Qiang Longtan said, "My name is Qiang Longtan. River Dragon Pond." The old man thought for a moment and said, "I've never heard Juzi mention that he has a friend like you. Actually, I've never met him before." Jiang Longtan said, "Your son is a very great man. He saved my daughter's life. If it wasn't for him, my daughter might have met with misfortune. Your son is a great man. He saved my daughter's life. If it weren't for him, my daughter might have met with misfortune. I don't know what to do to make you feel better. I just hope that you can get out of this as soon as possible. It's not a good way to go on like this. Your bodies can't stand it. The old man couldn't help crying and shouted, My son, why is your life so bitter? Xiaobao is still so young. How do you expect us orphans and widows to live? What will happen to Xiaobao in the future? Qiang Longtan held the old man in his arms and hugged her shoulders. He let her tears and snot smear on his expensive suit jacket. He comforted her. Old man, don't be like this. Please restrain your grief. My grandson is still young. There is still a long way to go. I hope you can live well. Let's all work hard to let our grandson grow up healthily. Let him go to the best school, and let him have a bright future. This is what Lu wants to see, right? He must want his son to become a pillar of the country. Dad is gone. What will happen to Xiaobao? How will he live in the future? The old man shouted hoarsely, and was extremely sad. There is us. And us. We will be Xiaobao's family in the future. Qiang Longtan said, as if he was making a promise. He glanced at the secretary standing next to him and shouted, Secretary Li. The middle-aged woman in a white uniform immediately came over and handed a prepared envelope to Qiang Longtan. Qiang Longtan put the envelope in the old man's hand and said, Old man, this is a small gift from me. There is a CITIC Bank card in the envelope. There is 1 million yuan in it. The old man's crying stopped abruptly. The woman lying on the bed also looked at Qiang Longtan with a dumbfounded expression. She couldn't believe what she heard. 1 million yuan? He actually gave them 1 million yuan. 1 million yuan? What kind of concept was that? Lu Jinju's monthly salary was 2,100 yuan. If they wanted to earn 1 million yuan, they would have to live for decades, even if they didn't eat or drink. Why did you give us so much money? The middle-aged woman asked in a dry voice. Because of guilt. Although Xiao Lu is gone, I hope you can live a life without worrying about food and clothing. Your child also needs money to grow up. Raising Xiaobao well was Xiaoyou's greatest wish. It's also ours. Qiang Longtan glanced around and said, Pack up and get ready to go back to your hometown. If there is any problem you can't solve, Secretary Li will help you solve it. Jiang Latin patted the old man's hand and said, Old man, I still have a lot of work to deal with, so I won't bother you anymore. With that said, he led a large group of people to go outside. Soon, those luxury cars quickly disappeared in this damp and crowded slum. However, the obvious tire marks on the ground proved that they had indeed been there. He didn't save Lu Chaoga either. Jiang Zhulu, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, said, Who doesn't want their son to be a hero? Qiang Longtan sighed softly. What a pitiful family. Screech. Fang Yan stopped the car, and then quickly ran to the back seat. He opened the door, and wanted to carry Lu Chaoga out of the car. I'll do it myself. Lu Chaoga refused. Lu Chaoga was dressed in black and wore sunglasses. There were several scars on her face, giving off a cold and stern feeling. She came to visit Lu Jinju, so she couldn't let a man carry her. She felt that it was disrespectful to the dead. Can your foot do it? Fang Yan frowned. Yes, Lu Chaoga said. She gently stretched out a high heel and pressed her body's center of gravity down. Her face immediately turned ugly. Pain. Fang Yan walked over to support her and said, Don't force yourself. I just put the bone back together yesterday. If you accidentally sprain it again, it won't be healed for a while. This time, Lu Chaoga didn't refuse. With Fang Yan's help, the two walked toward Lu Jinju's rental house. Another BMW. The woman in the checkered shirt stood in the corner and looked at Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga in horror. Since when did they have such rich relatives? If they were so rich, why would they come to rent a house with us? Don't talk so much. You almost caused trouble just now. The man next to her tried to dissuade her. Cause trouble? They set up a morning hall in our house. If I don't scold them, will you? Who would want to rent a house with a dead person in the future? The woman touched the thick stack of bills in her pocket and said, How about I go and scold them a few more times? Maybe they'll give me some hush money. Then we'll be rich today. When Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga entered the door, Lu Jinju's mother and mother were sitting on the bed in a daze. A woman in a white uniform with an extraordinary temperament stood quietly and looked at them with no expression. When Lu Chaoga saw the woman in white, her eyes slightly trembled. Secretary Li came over and looked at Lu Chaoga with concern and said, "Miss Lu, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Lu Chaoga said. "Why are you here?" "I accompanied Mr. Jiang here. Mr. Jiang visited Mr. Lu Jinju's family and then left. He asked me to stay and help deal with some things," Secretary Li explained. "What did Qiang Longtan come here for?" Fang Yan asked aloud. Secretary Li was very dissatisfied with Fang Yan's behavior of directly calling Qiang Longtan's name. He said with an unhappy expression, "I said that Mr. Jiang came to visit Lu Jinju's family, and he left 1 million as compensation." Lu Jinju's mother and wife looked at Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga again. Who were these two people? They were completely confused by what happened today. 1 million as compensation? Fang Yan looked at Lu Chaoga strangely and said, "You really have a good father. He did everything you wanted to do." Lu Chaoga was silent. She just quietly looked at the two poor women in the room, who were at a loss, and the baby who was still crying in their arms. That's not enough, Lu Chaoga thought in her heart. They got the compensation, but that life was gone just like that. He was killed by a car crash. This was intentional murder. Then blood must be paid with blood. She looked at Lu Jinju's honest smiling face on the wall and said to herself in her heart. Fang Yan's heart was also very uncomfortable. The man who felt special because he said sorry to trouble you. The filial man who had 2 dimples when he smiled. He said goodbye to the world in such a hurry. "You bastards, how can you harm people like this? You set up a mourning hall in my house. If others know about it, how can I rent this house? Do you have a conscience? Move out quickly, move out immediately." The man in the checkered shirt rushed to the door of the rented room again to scold and drive them away. "Shut up!" Fang Yan roared angrily. Chapter 160. They live in my house. The checkered shirt woman looked at Fang Yan cautiously and said, "I know. They put dead people's photos in my house. I can't rent out my house in the future because of the bad smell." "I know. You want money, right?" Fang Yan asked. "I'm not asking for money. I just want them to move out as soon as possible, so they don't affect my future rent. They won't leave now." Fang Yan looked at the woman's fat face and said, "Their relatives just left, and there are still a lot of things to deal with. They won't leave, and they can't leave. At least not for the time being. Then I won't give you money either." Fang Yan said, "You've scolded them for so long, and I can only promise not to hit you for the time being. No one wants to suffer this kind of inexplicable abuse, and no one has the right to attack others. Every time you scold them, it's equivalent to them returning the favor for occupying your house. The more you scold them, the faster they will return it. You might even owe them a lot in the end. At that time, I don't mind helping them collect the debt. Do you want to continue scolding them, or do you want to buy a watermelon from the fruit store across the street to quench your thirst?" The checkered shirt woman opened her mouth, but she didn't dare to continue scolding. She was afraid that Fang Yan would ask her for money. She angrily glared at the 2 women in the room, turned around, and walked towards the corner of the street. When the checkered shirt woman came over, Secretary Li had been watching coldly from the side. She wanted to see how this young man would drive this woman away. Throw money at her like a willow tree? Or hit her with his fists like a hooligan? Reason? She was afraid that this kind of money-hungry shrew wouldn't accept this kind of negotiation method. The more gentlemanly you were, the more she would take an inch. She didn't expect that he would use such a strange transaction. What an unpredictable guy, Secretary Li thought in her heart. After the checkered shirt woman left, Secretary Li reported to Lu Chaoga. "Miss Lu, Mr. Lu has just compensated that woman a lot of money." Lu Chaoga nodded and said, "Insatiable greed." She limped to Lu Jinju's wife and said, "I want to say sorry to you, but I also know that it doesn't mean anything to you. What happened doesn't mean it's over. I promised Lu Jinju, and I promise you again now, I will find out the truth. and I will make the murderer suffer the most miserable and cruel treatment. I promise I will do it. As a woman, I know how difficult it is for you right now. Therefore, I will do my best to help you. I'm not trying to express my guilt towards you. I just want to let Lu Jinju leave in peace. Do you want to stay in Huaqing or return to your hometown? The middle-aged woman thought about it and said with red eyes, I want to stay in Flower City. I have to work. Xiaobao had to study and live in the city. This is Yuzi's wish and mine. I don't want Xiaobao to be like his father in the future. He doesn't have to be a security guard because he's uneducated. And he can't hold an umbrella for others because he can't get wet. Yuzi is very motivated, but he's very pitiful. I understand, Lu Chaoga said. I will get someone to prepare a house for you. It won't be very big, but it will be very close to your workplace. I will give you a job that suits you. I will give you a year of paid leave. You can adjust your emotions and raise your child in this year. After a pause, Lu Chaoga continued, I will transfer Xiaobao's file to the Longta Group's senior employees file system. He can enjoy Longta Group's medical and accident insurance, and he can enjoy Longta Group's education and entrepreneurship fund. In other words, all of his school fees will be covered by the group. After he finishes his studies, he can use the entrepreneurship fund provided by the group to start his own business. Of course, if he has the ability, he can also stay in the group to work. This is what I can provide for you. Thump. The middle-aged woman jumped off the bed and knelt in front of Lu Chaoga. She hugged Lu Chaoga's calf and cried, Thank you, Miss Lu. Thank you. I will take good care of Xiaobao. I will make sure that Zhu will have no regrets. Such kind people. The old lady who was hugging her little grandson was also in tears. Thank you all for your kind people. I will pray to Bodhisattva every day, so that Bodhisattva can bless you with a long life. It was not convenient for Lu Chaoga to bend over. So Fang Yin quickly squatted down and pulled the middle-aged woman up. Secretary Li walked in front of Lu Chaoga and said, Miss Lu, Mr. Jiang asked me to escort them back. Did you hear that? Lu Chaoga pointed at the middle-aged woman and said, She wants to stay. She wants her child to live in Huaqing. She wants her child to receive a better education in Huaqing. I will help Lu Jinju fulfill his unfulfilled wish. Secretary Li smiled awkwardly and stood to the side without saying anything. As the car slid on the highway, Lu Chaoga, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly said, Is it fair? What? Fang Yin, who was driving, did not understand what Lu Chaoga meant. It's not fair. Lu Chaoga sighed softly. Lu Chaoga had many injuries on her body. In addition to the inconvenience of walking, there were also many cuts on her face. She had no choice but to take a few days off from school to rest at home. At the very least, she had to wait until the wounds on her face were better. Otherwise, when she went to the office, people would think that Lu Chaoga and Fang Yin had a conflict and started fighting. After the car stopped, Fang Yin quickly walked to the back seat and helped Lu Chaoga out of the car. Just as they were about to return to the courtyard where they lived, a surprised shout came from behind. Fang Yin. Fang Yin turned around and saw his grandparents standing not far away, looking at him. The person who had just shouted was his grandmother. Grandpa was carrying a shopping bag in his hand. There were vegetables and meat in it. They should have just come back from shopping at the supermarket. Grandma, did you go shopping? Fang Yin asked with a smile. Grandma walked quickly to Fang Yin, but her eyes were smiling at Lu Chaoga. She said, Where did you two go? Principal Lu is not feeling well. I sent her to the hospital, Fang Yin said. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yin with dissatisfaction and thought, I didn't go to the hospital. Who wants to be told that they went to the hospital? Grandma was anxious and asked with concern, What's wrong with little Lu? Where is it? Aya, what happened to little Lu's face? How did you get hurt like this? I accidentally fell, Fang Yin said. Lu Xiaoga did fall, but it wasn't an accident. He was pushed down by him. Of course, he couldn't explain the details to Grandpa and Grandma. There were many things that could only be borne by young people like them. Grandma got closer and looked at the wound on Lu Chaoga's face carefully. She said, Why does it look like it was scratched by someone? No, Fang Yen said with a smile. Who dares to scratch our Principal Lu? Grandma's eyes changed when she looked at Fang Yen. She asked with a serious expression, Fang Yen, tell me, did you do it? Fang Yen had a feeling of being hit by a stick. Grandma, are you my biological grandmother? How can you doubt your grandson like this? How could your grandson do such a thing? How could I have the guts? How dare I shave Principal Lu's face like this? Fang Yen, how could you do such a thing? Grandma said angrily. The Fangs taught you to fight all day. But didn't they teach you how to read and write? Our Lu family is a family of scholars. Respecting women is the most basic virtue. You actually used force on a woman. Can you still be considered a man? Grandma, I didn't. Fang Yen hurriedly explained. He didn't dare to bear the bad reputation of hitting a woman. His grandma was a talented student in Peking University's Faculty of Arts. She was a famous feminist when she was young. Grandfather Lu had such a strong personality, but in private, he was also tamed by her to be docile and obedient. If he left such a bad impression in her heart, he wouldn't be able to raise his head in front of her for the rest of his life. More importantly, he wouldn't be able to eat the food she cooked in the future. How could I hit a woman? I like them so much. You ask Principal Lu. You ask Principal Lu what's going on? Grandma looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, Little Lu, tell me, what's the matter with the injury on your face? Did Fang Yen shave it? No. Lu Chaoga said. Look. Fang Yen was amused. How could I do such a thing? Fang Yen only pushed me down. That's why I got hurt. Lu Chaoga said. Fang Yan's eyes widened. Oh my God. I pushed you down to save you. You can't bite the hand that feeds you. Fang Yen, you really disappoint me. Grandma was furious. She looked around, grabbed a bunch of green onions from the shopping bag, and hit Fang Yan's head. How could you do such a thing? Why did you push little Lu down? This is worse than shaving your face. Grandma, you misunderstood. Fang Yen explained while covering his head. He felt that he was really wronged. How could a woman like Lu Chaoga stab him at this time? Weren't they close comrades and partners? I misunderstood you. Grandma slapped him even more vigorously. Little Lu said it himself. What kind of misunderstanding can there be? Lu Gong's face was also embarrassed, and he scolded. A man who hits a woman will never have a bright future. Lu Chaoga. Fang Yen roared angrily. Little Lu, don't speak up for him. Grandma held Lu Chaoga's hand and comforted her. If you don't teach him a lesson, he'll be even more lawless in the future. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yen and said, He pushed me down to save me. Chapter 161. Grandma looked at Fang Yen, then looked at Lu Chaoga, and asked in confusion, Little Lu, what's going on? You don't have to be afraid of him. Just tell me the truth. Grandma will stand up for you. Fang Yen pushed me to the ground and scratched my face. Lu Chaoga said leisurely, He did it to save me. The green onion in Grandma's hand fell to the ground. Did she hit her grandson for nothing? Did it really have nothing to do with Fang Yen? Fang Yen was finally saved. He stared at Lu Chaoga angrily and roared. Lu Chaoga, why did you accuse me? Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yen expressionlessly and said, Did I say anything wrong? Fang Yen thought about it. Lu Chaoga really didn't say anything wrong. Grandma asked her if she scratched her face, and Lu Chaoga answered yes. That was the truth. Grandma asked her how she scratched her face, and she said she pushed her down and hurt herself. That was also the truth. He pushed her down and hurt himself, because he wanted to save her. That was also the truth. She didn't lie, and she answered all the questions truthfully. But girl, can you say everything in one breath? How can you play with people like this? Seeing Fang Yan's angry look, Grandma patted his arm again and said dotingly, You child, what's there to be angry about? Little Lu was just joking with you. Do you need to be so angry? If you were an insignificant person, would little Lu joke with you? Fang Yen was so wronged that he was about to cry. Grandma, are you my grandma or Lu Chaoga's grandma? Isn't it too obvious that you're biased? Stingy men are also useless. Lu Gong's eyes were on the flowers and plants on the roadside, and he said stiffly, Okay. Grandma won't ask about you young people's business anymore. Grandma pointed to the shopping bag in Lu Gong's hand and said, I saw some fresh hairy crabs in the supermarket, so I bought a few of them. I was just about to call you to ask you to come home for dinner tonight. And now we just happened to bump into each other. Chowga, you too. Grandma, I don't think that's necessary. Fang Yin refused. Principal Lu's injuries are serious. We'll have to apply medicine for her later. It doesn't matter. You can take Chowga to my place first, and then you can go back and get the medicine. I have plenty of rooms at my place, and you can apply the medicine there, said Grandma with a smile. Principal Lu, you can't eat seafood. I also bought lean meat and white fish. It's just a meal. Why are you being so wishy-washy? Lu Gong's gaze finally shifted to Fang Yan's face as he said impatiently. After scolding Fang Yan, he looked at Lu Chaoga with a gentle expression and said, Xiao Lu, let's have dinner together. I have something to talk to you about. Sure, Principal Lu. Lu Chaoga agreed without hesitation. So, Lu Gong led the way with his hands behind his back, and Grandma looked at Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga with a smile. Fang Yan couldn't resist, and had to help Lu Chaoga walk toward his grandparents' house. Why did you do this to me? Fang Yan complained in a low voice as he walked at the back with Lu Chaoga's help. Grandma had indeed hit him in the head, and his face smelled of garlic. Did I? Lu Chaoga asked. Of course she wouldn't tell him the reason. On the night of the tragedy, he picked her up rudely and threw her on the sofa, which made her already seriously injured body even worse. He grabbed her shoulder and questioned how long she was going to use him. When she took off her clothes in the shower that night, she found that there was a large purplish-red finger print on her shoulder. What was even more hateful was that the second before the police broke the door, he suddenly threw himself at her and kissed her lips when she was caught off guard. She was the vice principal of Rosefinch Secondary and her superior. If she didn't teach him a lesson, where would her dignity be? You did it on purpose. Fang Yan said fiercely. Let's see who will help you in the future. The corner of Lu Chaoga's mouth curled up into a charming smile, but it disappeared in a flash. Fang Yan had just settled Lu Chaoga on the sofa in the living room when Grandma urged, Fang Yan, go back and get the medicine for Xiao Lu. You can't delay it. Grandma, actually, it's okay to apply it after dinner, Fang Yan said perfunctorily. Lu Chaoga did need to apply the medicine, but the time to apply the medicine was after the shower every night. He just didn't want to listen to Grandma's nagging, so he found an excuse to refuse to come here for dinner. At this time, he really didn't want to go back to get the medicine for nothing. How can that be? Grandma pulled Fang Yan up from the sofa. Hurry up and get the medicine. This is a big deal. What if I get disfigured because of the delay? When Fang Yan left helplessly, Lu Gong looked at Lu Chaoga and said, How's the school work? It's fine, Lu Chaoga said. That's good. Lu Gong nodded with relief. Is it difficult? Everyone takes care of me. Communicate more. They will understand, Lu Gong said. I'm not good at communicating. That's why I invited you back. I won't disappoint the old principal's expectations, Lu Chaoga said. This is the expectation of the whole school, Lu Gong said. Fang Yan, he's young and impulsive. He's smart but he's lazy and lazy. You have to urge him more. I will. Lu Chaoga nodded. If he bullies you, Lu Gong thought about it and said, Tell Grandma. Fang Yan is very good, Lu Chaoga said. She understood the deeper meaning of the old principal's words. As long as you say it's good, Lu Gong said. He stood up and said, I'll go check the kitchen. As soon as Lu Gong entered the kitchen, his wife grabbed his arm and glanced at the living room. She whispered, Is Fang Yan really together with little Lu? Lu Gong said with a straight face. What's there to be surprised about? Little Lu is good. It's Fang Yan's good fortune to be able to be together with her. He found a treasure, his wife said. I'm just afraid that Fang Yan doesn't know how to cherish it, and does things that make people angry. Why are you, an old woman, getting involved in the matters of young people? Lu Gong said with his eyes wide open. You're not getting involved? I'm not getting involved. Lu Gong turned around and was about to leave. After taking 2 steps, he turned back and said, Have a good talk with that brat. Tell him to be more mature in the future. Damn old man, you're so stubborn. Grandma grinned. Qiang Longtan's office was very simple. As the chairman and the actual controller of the Longta Group, his office conditions were worse than some of the deputy directors in the group. He was even worse than some department managers. The office space was less than 30 square meters. There was a wooden desk and a wooden chair. Behind him was a row of bookcases against the wall. The bookcases were filled with all kinds of books. Other than that, there was nothing else. Most of the time, King Longtan would sit in his office and read. When he read the most interesting parts of the book, he would pick up his pen and make comments in the middle of the book. Since King Longtan loved books, the company's senior and middle management liked to read as well. Moreover, they all liked to borrow books from King Longtan. King Longtan did not reject any of them. Of course, King Longtan had a rule. When borrowing a book, he would specify the return date. After reading the book had to be returned on a regular basis. Then, everyone would discuss the content of the book together. It was a happy and harmonious atmosphere. Whether this habit of borrowing books was sincere or just to please, only the person involved would know. The senior management of the Longta Group knew that there was only one senior manager who had not borrowed a book from King Longtan. That was Lu Jing, the chief engineer of the Research and Development Department. Lu Jing was a veteran employee of the Longta Group. It was said that when the company had just started, there were only 9 people in the company, and he was one of them. The others were either the general managers of major departments, or the capable ones who had been promoted quickly were now the deputy directors of the company. Of course, Lu Jing was not doing badly. For an energy company, the Research and Development Department was the core industry of the group. It was the most important department. All the other departments were actually serving the Research and Development Department. Therefore, Lu Jing did not borrow books from King Longtan. Although everyone felt that he was a little pedantic, or even an idiot, King Longtan had never expressed any ill will towards him. His position was as stable as Mount Tai. As King Longtan was reading a reference book, The History of Huaxia written by the Japanese, someone knocked on the office door. "Come in," King Longtan shouted without raising his head. His gaze was still on the open page of the book. The office door was pushed open silently. Secretary Li walked in and said, "Chairman Jiang, Lu Gong wants to talk to you." "Lu Jing?" King Longtan closed the book and said, "He's a rare guest. Let him in." "Yes," Secretary Li replied, turned around and left. When the office door was pushed open again, a middle-aged man in a white coat appeared in front of King Longtan. His face was full of sideburns, and his hair was messy, as if he had not washed it for a month. Lu Jing closed the office door behind him and stood at the office door chuckling. This scene was both surprising and strange. A company's senior management had entered the boss office, but he did not say a word and only grinned foolishly. What kind of logic was this? "Chairman Jiang, I'm here to borrow a book from you," Lu Jing said with a chuckle. Crash! King Longtan pushed the chair away and stood up. He looked at Lu Jing with a serious face and said, "Old Lu, what do you mean by this? Aren't you slapping my face? King Longtan? We've known each other for so many years, and you're playing this game with me?" Lu Jing still chuckled and said, "I can't help it. These days, if you want to be promoted, get rich, and save your life, you have to say a few good words and stuff your head in your pants. What else can I do?" "Lu Jing, what do you mean by this?" King Longtan shouted sternly. Chapter 162. Lu Jing wasn't intimidated by King Longtan's anger. He kept that infuriating smirk on his face and said sarcastically, "What do I mean? In order to save my little life, I came to flatter you, Jiang Longtan, just like those other fellows who borrowed books from you to get promoted and become rich. What's wrong with that? What? Am I not good at flattery? Or am I not polite enough? Is that why you're not going to lend me books? I used to be the only one who didn't want to borrow books from you, but now I'm the only one who doesn't want to borrow books from you. It'll be interesting if people hear about it." King Longtan stared at Lu Jing coldly and said, "What? Are you suspecting me of what happened to Chaoga? Who else could it be?" Lu Jing didn't bother to hide his emotions, and his dark beard quivered as he spoke. "Who benefited the most from Lu Mingtu's death? Now if Lu Xiaoge were to die, who would benefit the most? The one who benefits is the murderer. Is there a need to doubt that? Lu Jing, don't slander me. Qiang Longtan bellowed. The three of us have known each other for a long time. And I see you and Mingtu as my best friends. I've never tried to profit from my friend's death. I'm sad about what happened to Mingtu, but I had nothing to do with it. Plus, you know what happened to the company back then, don't you? Mingtu died so suddenly that we had to put our research and marketing plans on hold for the time being. It was a huge loss for me as well. What did I gain? What did I gain? Of course you did. Lu Jing sneered. How big was Longtu Group back then? How big is it now? At that time, Longtu Group was jointly owned by you and Lu Mingtu. Now it has become the Jiang family's private property. If this isn't a benefit, then what is? The reason why the Longtu Group has developed to such a scale today is because I, Qiang Longtan, have been working hard and doing my best for so many years. It's also because countless Longtu people have fought by my side and contributed selflessly. The Longtu Group's current achievements are due to luck, and it's inevitable. This is the reward for the hard work of me and all the people of Longtu. Qiang Longtan, I know you're eloquent and I can't win against you. I just came to tell you something. I can stop pursuing what happened to Lu Mingtu. I can't do anything about it, but I'm warning you. Don't touch Lu Xiaoge. If anything happens to Lu Xiaoge, I won't forgive you. Lu Jing pointed at Qiang Longtan and threatened. Impudent! Qiang Longtan roared. Lu Jing, do you know what you're doing? Of course I do, Lu Jing said. I also hope you know what you're doing. Lu Jing, Chairman Jiang, do you have anything else to say? You're fired, Qiang Longtan said. Lu Jing looked at Qiang Longtan and laughed. He laughed so hard that tears and snot came out of his eyes. Qiang Longtan, oh Qiang Longtan, I knew you're not a good person. Lu Jing pointed at Qiang Longtan and laughed so hard that he almost couldn't breathe. You hypocrite, you really are a villain. You're a butcher who talks about morality and loyalty. You're a kind-hearted killer. You got rid of Lu Mingtu in order to monopolize power. Now in order to cover up your crimes, you want to kick me away. Ha ha ha. You say we're your best friend and brother. Qiang Longtan, is this how you treat your best friend and brother? Lu Jing took out a folded piece of paper from the pocket of his white coat and walked in front of Qiang Longtan. He slapped the paper on Qiang Longtan's desk and sneered. Qiang Longtan, I know you're capable of doing anything. So, I've already written this resignation letter. You don't need to kick me out. I'll resign myself. Now can I leave? Scram. Qiang Longtan pointed at the door and shouted. You're on your own. Lu Jing stared at Qiang Longtan with disdain and said, Remember what I said. If anything happens to Lu Xiaoge again, I don't care if you did it or not. I'll put it on your head. Lu Jing strode out of the office, knocking against the door with a loud bang. Secretary Li pushed the door open and came in, asking with concern, Mr. Jiang Lu Gong. It's okay. Qiang Longtan waved his hand and said, He has some misunderstandings about me. Let him calm down. The sky was dark and the rain was hazy. This kind of weather was suitable for daydreaming with a cup of latte in a cafe, or sitting under the eaves of the corridor, with a copy of Song Ci in hand. There was no need to think or do anything. Along with the drizzle, one's thoughts spread out to a boundless and limitless range. Uncle Lu, how could you quarrel with him? Lu Xiaoge said with a face full of guilt. Because of me, you lost your job. I really don't know how to repay you. What's a job? Big Beard Lu Jing said angrily. Your mother and I were classmates and good friends with your father. The few of us came up with this creative project together, and we established a company together. When they got married, I was one of your father's 3 groomsmen. On the day you were born, your father and I waited at the door of the ward. How could I not feel bad when your parents met with such a disaster? How did I get through all these years? I wanted to leave Longtu for a long time, but I couldn't bear to. Longtu had my blood, sweat, and tears, as well as your parents' blood. This was the result of all of our hard work. Longtu is an egg. We personally turned the egg into a chick, and watched the chick grow up day by day. I have feelings for Longtu. However, they had gone too far. I couldn't stop them from laying their hands on your parents in the past. Now they want to lay their hands on you. I can't take it anymore. If they don't succeed this time, they won't do it again? I might as well shed all pretense of cordiality with them and make them feel some fear. Otherwise, they will be even more lawless. Who can guarantee what they will do next time? Lu Chaoga sighed softly and said, Unfortunately, I don't have any evidence. You can't be too hasty with this kind of thing, Lu Jing said. It's been so many years. You were still young back then. What evidence could you have? So many years have passed. Even if there was any evidence left, it would have been cleaned up by them a long time ago. It's not that easy to find evidence. Uncle Lu, what should I do now? Lu Chaoga looked at Lu Jing and asked in a low voice. He was her elder and her parents' best friend. She was very lost now and needed someone to point her in the right direction. Get the shares back, Lu Jing said. They always put on a bodhisattva face, so you can't do anything. What about themselves? They're cruel and merciless. They're too much of a bully. They're heartless, so we have to be heartless too. You can't hide it anymore. Find a lawyer to negotiate with them and get back the shares that belong to you. You're an adult now and have the right to take over all the shares in loan to group under your father's name. Fang Yan sat next to her and drank his tea, but he didn't interrupt. This was Lu Chaoga's family business. It wasn't appropriate for him to get too involved. Lu Chaoga hesitated and said, If that's the case. Chaoga, people are sinister, Lu Jing comforted her. I know. Qiang Long Tan raised you for more than 20 years, and you have feelings for them. But how did they treat you? They wanted to kill you. Although we don't have any evidence, our feelings won't lie to us. Don't we already know who did this? I think it's better to be cautious, Fang Yan said with a smile. Qiang Long Tan didn't say that he wouldn't give it to them. If Chaoga acts rashly, she might be used by someone with ulterior motives. Lu Jing stared at Fang Yan and asked, Who are you? I'm Principal Lu's colleague, Fang Yan said. Colleague? Lu Jing was angry. He pointed at Fang Yan and said, You're just Chaoga's colleague. What right do you have to make decisions for others? How can this be a child's play? You don't know anything. You don't know how urgent this matter is. I didn't say I was going to make decisions for him. Fang Yan explained, I'm just giving you a suggestion. I'll bring it up, and you guys can discuss it. If you think it's feasible, then do it. If not, then pretend I didn't say anything. How about I wait at the door for a while? Uncle Lu, Fang Yan can be trusted, Lu Chaoga said to stop the two men from arguing. Fang Yan has a point. To be honest, my head is a mess right now. Who did this to my parents? Who wanted to hit me that night? There's no evidence, no clues. If I fall out with the Jiang family, it won't be good for them. But what good will it do for me? If I fall out with the Jiang family, it'll be a huge blow to Loan to Group. Just like Uncle Lu said, Loan to Group is your blood and sweat. And it's also my parents' blood and sweat. All these years, I've never done anything for it. But I can't tarnish its reputation. Soft-hearted, Lu Jing sighed. Just like your parents. If your parents had listened to me back then, they wouldn't have died tragically in a foreign land. Lu Chaoga's face turned pale. She asked anxiously, Uncle Lu, what do you mean by that? If anyone knew the truth, the person in front of her would be one of them. Even Fang Yan's nerves were stirred by this sentence. Could it be that Lu Chaoga's parents had encountered the same difficult choice back then? If that was the case, then who had forced him into such a situation? Fang Yan felt that the fog was about to dissipate, and the twilight of the truth was waving at them not far away. Chapter 163. The raindrops were like pearls, falling densely, as if they would never stop. The banana tree in the corner was thick and vigorous. Its leaves, which were bigger than grass fans, were blown off by the strong wind. A few pots of cacti were still exposed in the rain, using their tenacious vitality to resist the bad weather. In this restless afternoon, there were bound to be some restless events. Lu Jing took a sip of tea, looked at the rain outside and said, This terrible weather. I wonder when the sky will be clear. People are going to grow mold. The two audience members, Lu Chaoga and Fang Yan, had no intention of continuing the conversation. They hoped that Lu Jing could quickly get to the point instead of talking nonsense. Lu Jing's expression became sad, just like the continuous rainy season that made people feel depressed. There are times when teeth bite the tongue, not to mention two men with different life backgrounds. When Longtu was first established, Qiang Longtan provided the capital, and your father provided the technology. Qiang Longtan held 51% of the shares of Longtu Group, and your father held 49%. At that time, your father felt that he had too much and wanted to reduce his shares, but Qiang Longtan stopped him. Qiang Longtan told your father that this was a technical company, and that technology was the soul and life of Longtu. He said your father deserved more. Of course, it was their honeymoon period at that time. I heard these things from your mother, because I had not entered Longtu Group at that time. You should know that the core project of Longtu Group is the Rubik's Cube. The Rubik's Cube is mainly used to support some high-tech projects, including ships, warships, or submarines. The Rubik's Cube is your father's work. Your parents had always wanted to commercialize the Rubik's Cube. They hoped to reduce its development costs, so that it could be popularized in all aspects of people's lives. For example, computers, mobile phones, home televisions, and other electrical products that require energy. He hoped to bring about a revolution to replace new energy sources. This is the great ideal and ultimate goal of every researcher. However, Qiang Longtan hoped to rely on it to get a super order from the military. He hoped to completely militarize the Rubik's Cube. In other words, he wanted to develop its power to the extreme, and as for the cost, the military would pay for it anyway. Then the conflict between the two sides arose. It was when their argument was at its most intense that I entered Longtu Group. I was personally invited to the company by Qiang Longtan. He hoped that there would be another scientist to compete with your father, so that he would know his position, and not blindly compete with him, the actual controller. For a long time, my relationship with your father was not harmonious. Your father was a stubborn man, and I was the person chosen by Qiang Longtan. I had to act. I had to act with him to gain his trust. But from the bottom of my heart, I agreed with your father's choice. The two of us even privately imagined the widespread civilian market of the Rubik's Cube, and the impact it would bring to the world. We quickly became friends. Of course, your mother and I have been friends for a long time. Because the research on the Rubik's Cube has encountered a technical problem, both for civilian and military purposes, it can only be temporarily shelved. The relationship between Qiang Longtan and your father has been restored. There is no conflict of interest. In my opinion, they are even closer than before. If that's the case, Lu Chaoga clenched her fists. Why did they still attack them? I don't know. Lu Jing shook his head. Maybe there are a lot of details I don't know. I only know that after your parents worked overtime for several months, Qiang Longtan said they should go out for a walk. They chose to go to the place they always wanted to go, and never came back. Silence. There was a long silence. Lu Chaoga's face was expressionless, but her hands that were holding the teacup were trembling slightly, as if she was going to crush the teacup in her hands. Fang Yen took the teacup from Lu Chaoga's hand and patted her knee gently. He looked at Lu Jing and said, "You also persuaded Principal Lu's father, Mr. Lu and Jiang Zhilu, to part ways?" Lu Jing's face was a little unnatural as he said, "I did persuade him. Since everyone is not happy with each other, why do we have to eat in the same pot? With Mingtu's ability and the patent of the Rubik's Cube, he can do well anywhere." Unfortunately, Mingtu refused. He said that since he had chosen to cooperate with Qiang Longtan, he would not easily abandon his teammates. But did he choose the right teammate? He did not betray his teammates, but his teammates completely sold him out. "We still don't have any evidence," Fang Yin said aloud. "There is no evidence to prove that Qiang Longtan did it." Lu Jing sneered and said, "You haven't dealt with Qiang Longtan. You don't know how terrible he is. Evidence? How could you find evidence for what he did? Besides, if I had evidence in my hands, I would have reported Qiang Longtan long ago. Why would I need to swallow it for so many years?" Fang Yin glanced at Lu Chaoga and said, "Principal Lu is in a bad mood now. Give her a little more time. Let her think about it again." Lu Jing looked at Lu Chaoga and said, "Chaoga, this is your business. You take care of it yourself. Uncle Lu doesn't mean anything else. I just hope you don't walk the same path as your father. Qiang Longtan is already diluting your father's shares with shell companies. If you act too late, I'm afraid there won't be anything left in your hands. Uncle Lu. Lu Chaoga looked up at Lu Jing and said, "Can you help me?" "Me?" Lu Jing looked at Lu Chaoga in surprise. "I've always wanted to help you. I used to be able to provide you with some information, but I have no power or position now, and I'm just a stranger to Longta Group. What can I help you with? Although you've resigned from Longta Group, you can be my representative. Help me set up a legal team and negotiate with Qiang Longtan. Help me get back everything that belongs to me. Chaoga, I've always been in the technical field, and I really can't do this. You should find another trustworthy person." Lu Jing refused. His expression was sincere, and his tone was sincere. "Only you," Lu Chaoga said. "You're the only one I can trust and the right person to do this. Uncle Lu, I'm counting on you." "Fine." Lu Jing gritted his teeth and said, "I don't know much about economics, but I know how to negotiate with Qiang Longtan." "Thank you," Lu Chaoga said gratefully. After discussing the details, Lu Jing stood up and said goodbye to Lu Chaoga. Lu Chaoga couldn't stand up to see him off because of her legs. Fang Yin walked him to the gate of the small courtyard. Lu Jing opened the umbrella and said to Fang Yin, "It's raining heavily outside. Let's go back." Fang Yin stood at the threshold and said with a smile, "It's raining heavily outside. Take care. Let's go." Lu Jing waved his hand and walked into the rainforest. Because of the accumulation of rain on the ground, Fang Yin could clearly see that his shoes were soaked as soon as they touched the ground. Fang Yin closed the gate and walked back to the living room. He sat down next to Lu Chaoga, who was staring out the window in a daze, and said, "Are you in too much of a hurry?" "Yes, I am," Lu Chaoga said. "You believe that Qiang Longtan did it?" "Right now, all the evidence points to him as the target. Everyone is telling me that he's the murderer," Lu Chaoga said. "Yes." Fang Yin thought for a while and said, "It's like it's been arranged." "Yes, it's like it's been arranged," Lu Chaoga said. "It looks like the pot of water is about to boil. So I'll pour another bucket of oil into it. Let's see what kind of chemical effect it will have by pouring oil into boiling water." Fang Yan's body leaned weakly on the sofa and he said, "It must be wonderful, right? I hope that their patience isn't too good. I hope that they won't hide it for too long," Lu Chaoga said. "I hope that it'll be a quick revenge." Lu Jing lived in an ordinary apartment in a residential area, which was very different from his status as a senior manager of Longta Group. After all, due to the popularity of the energy sector in recent years, even the income of some department managers was enough to buy a villa around Xixia Mountain. He parked his old Honda that he had driven for several years in the open-air parking lot below the apartment. Just as he was about to open the door and get out of the car, the phone in his pocket rang. He picked up the phone and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. After answering the call, he asked, "Who is this?" "Did she agree?" A man's voice came from the other side of the phone. "She agreed." A hint of a smile appeared on Lu Jing's lips. "Even the most vigilant cat has its moments of napping." "Very good," the man said. "I have a present for you." "What present?" "Look up," the man said. Lu Jing was sitting in the car. The car did not have a sunroof, so he could not see anything when he looked up. So, he pushed the door open and took an umbrella from the back seat. Just as he was about to get out of the car to check, a large object fell from the sky. Lu Jing was still holding the large black umbrella in his hand. The umbrella cloth covered his entire body, and he could only tilt the umbrella to see the sky above his head. His eyes were narrowed into slits, and his beard was wet from the splashing rain. The sky was still dark, and the rain was already heavy. Rumble! Thunder roared and lightning flashed. The blazing white lightning tore through the sky, lighting up the dark and oppressive sky like a bright lamp. With the help of that flash of light, Lu Jing finally saw clearly what the thing that was flying towards him was. It was the metal water tank that the property management company had installed on the roof to store water for the tenants. Yes, it was the large water tank that Lu Jing had once touched with his own hands. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.